Everyone, welcome back to my channel again. Today I'm going to do a tutorial on how to use ChatGPT. As most of you already know, ChatGPT has been a dominating AI chatbot around the world. They have very capable models to help us to accomplish daily tasks, either for study, for life, for research, and so on. Although they have some fundamental defects like hallucination, imperfection of output, and so on, I still think it's very useful for us to understand how to use it to boost our productivity. Now we take a look at the ChatGPT 4.0 model first. As we progress, I'm going to introduce you to other models, but this one is the most direct, and it is now the default model that you are going to engage after logging to ChatGPT. Case number 1, simple question and answering. So let's ask who is Tom Hanks? And the chatbot will give us the reply on who he is. Of course, this is based on the ChatGPT training data. And if you stop here, you have a great chance that some of the information is not accurate. So if you want to further increase the reliability of the response of the Q&A, you can go ask cross-check on the internet. This is one way to make sure that the response will have a more robust proof. So as you can see here, ChatGPT already did additional search on Bing, Wikipedia, and other websites, and eventually give you this response. And you can see also here are citations where you can go directly to the source of the information. It will make the results more reliable. Case number 2, if we go on with this question, let's see, can you summarize some statistics about Tom Hanks in his career? Cite sources. And we can see now we are going into another step to understand the statistics about this person's career, and also we can see some numbers here. So this could be a quick dive into the data analytics about a specific topic. As you can see, if you ask questions with additional requirements to cross-check or to show the sources, to cite sources, you are going to get more robust response. Case number 3, let's see if we can transfer this textual information into statistical table. Okay, let's try it. Please provide statistical table for the stats you gathered. And you can see now ChatGPT is running the code in its own environment to analyze the relevant information and put inside. Usually, if you already have some chat results, it will transfer those statistical information to a data table in his environment. And as you can see here, you have a tabular data display, and you can also enlarge it, expand, and you can check the whole table. Of course, some of the values, for example, this is dollar value, and then you have the count value. Some of them are not in the same standard, but you can always improve and ask additional questions to perfect these statistical information. Now, let's go to the next case number 4, data analytics. We do not just gather the data table, we actually go deeper to the analytical aspect. Now, let's expand the data analytics range. Let's say, please compare 5 more actors like Tom Hanks. Gather the similar stats, separate in dollar value data and count data, show comparison in graph. As you can see now, ChatGPT has gathered several names like Leonardo DiCaprio, Denzel Washington, Brad Pitt, Robert Downey Jr., Johnny Depp. Okay, so it now gathered the relevant information from a reliable source. This is because I already asked it several times to cite the sources, so now in the new response, I do not need to specify it. But if you see that it is not citing sources, you can always ask it to do so. As you can see now, we have the information gathered. Now it is starting to compiling the information gathered. As I specified before, now we need to separate the dollar value and also the count value in separate table. And we can see here, it does a quick job. Show first of all the total global box office gross income of the famous actors. As we can see, the different actors are compared in this bar chart. It looks good. And we can see here, we have the comparison of the award-winning count of each actor in different awards. So this bar chart is also organized well. You can see here is also a summary that is said that I have created two sets of visual comparison, global box office gross, and also award comparison. Of course, I always recommend you to double check the data it gathered because sometimes it may not be 100% accurate. This has been an issue of the models that we are using now. Now, let's go to next case. Case number 5, advanced data analytics. So we have already gathered some of the statistical data, and we want to first of all expand our sample because we want to see more actors, for example, and we want to see a classification to see how can we group different different actors. Okay, let's try it. Expand actor range to 30, gather relevant data and categorize them according to the data you gathered. Use proper machine learning model. Okay, as you can see now, if ChatGPT is giving you two responses, because now the response of the ChatGPT sometimes cannot reach the optimum, so now there is a reinforcement learning step. It asks the user, like you and me, to choose between the response to see which one is better. So it will act as another data source for them to enhance the performance of the model. As you can see, there is a response number 1, it goes to a deeper thinking process, and the response 2 already get the results as we can see here. And it stops at the machine learning model choosing, suggested the k-means clustering or random forest classification. As you can see in the left-hand side, it actually goes to, first of all, the list of the actors, gather the data, and also describe the data analytics approach, the process, for example, data preparation, and model selection, and evaluation, visualization, and so on. So the response number 1 goes into a chain of sort process. So the response looks more robust than the number 2 response. Okay. And as you can see here, it already, on the second response, it already gathered the 10 actors information, right? It only shows you the example and it will go on. Okay, since the first response you see, I can't perform actual data analytics and generate real-time graphs without the current data. It only shows you the framework and do not do further suggestion about how it will do the work. So I will choose the second response. I will say go ahead. And you can see now it starts to write code to analyze the data. As we can see here, the only problem is that it only gathered 10 actors data, reading the data frame and normalize the data. This looks good. It's a very common approach in data analytics. And apply the k-means clustering. And you can see it uses these statistics, box office gross income, academic awards, Golden Globe awards, Emmy awards count. And we can see we have this cluster chart, shows a different cluster of the actors. As we can see, it actually separated into 3 clusters. Cluster 0 with moderate box office performance and a combination of awards. And these are the actors included. Then cluster 1 with high box office growth but relatively fewer awards, looks accurate. And also high award count and a substantial box office figures. Now, you can also choose to download the chart to your local environment or go on with the chart. Since the response does not match our expectation yet, let's go on to ask it. Please make sure you include 30 actors. Okay, because now we only have 10. So it starts to describe you first what it is going to do, gather data, process, and rerun k-means clustering. And here we see more actors are joining in the analytics process. Let's do a brief count here. We have 5 columns here. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we have 30 actors. We also have the table, but as you can see, since some of the data is not available, so when you do the analytics, you will have the error. And it starts to resolve this issue to correct this error. Yeah. So now it suggests to replace the missing value with mean or median. Okay, let's see what it has done here. It actually you choose the median value to the not available data. Makes sense. Of course, you can also ask it to choose 0 to substitute the NA value. Now, let's see. Okay, the data looks okay now, and we go to see the different results. We have the cluster chart. As you can see here, the actors are clustered into 3 categories. And we also have the detailed table here. It looks good. Of course, you can also download it to do further analysis. Okay, so in this case, we expand our data set. We apply a machine learning algorithm to categorize the data. Case number 6. Now, let's summarize the information we gathered and analyzed above. Now, let's say write a summary report on the analytical results as a hypothetical data analyst called Tom. As you can see, it now drafts the summary report of the data analytics we have just done. They describe the approach, detailed steps, and the results and observations. And it also gives you the conclusion here and the recommendation. I always see this part of recommendations very valuable to give us insight to do further analysis and to see how the large language model has improved over time. Now let's take a look at case number 7. In case number 7, I'm going to ask the model to draft an email to send the information to the boss and to schedule an appointment to discuss it. So let's see. Please draft an email to send above results to the analytical team boss called Tim and schedule an appointment to discuss the analysis tomorrow 2 p.m. Now it starts to draft the email. I really like the function to draft the email because it saves your time. You just need to proofread and to modify the email, then you can send it. You can see here for the appointment, it actually added this as a text message to send in the email, and in general it looks good. Now let's go to case number 8. We ask for additional task. So I will ask it, please update my Google Calendar for the appointment mentioned. So this will go beyond its capability because it does not have the link with my Google Calendar. The model will instruct me how to add the appointment to my Google Calendar. And you could have other options. There are many tools that you can choose. For example, the GPTs created by others to perform such task. But you need to consider the more you involve the third party, the more you are exposing your personal information to the third party. So there is a tricky balance here. Case number 9. Alternatives to the uncompleted tasks. For example, as you can see here, we cannot ask GPT to do a job for us, but we could have an alternative. For example, if we have the calendar file attached to our email, the counterparty could receive it and also open it to include the appointment in the schedule. Okay, so I would ask, please create a calendar attachment file for me so I send with my email. As we can see here, the model starts to write the code, although you can see the speed is not very fast, and eventually it saved the file first in its environment and will provide a link for us to download. As we can see here, the model does not successfully provide ICS file for us. this is one of the cases where we meet another obstacle using this model. However, we can also copy-paste the code to our local environment to run such code and generate the file. Or we can go to Google Calendar. In some other cases, for example, if you want to ask ChatGPT to generate a notebook file for you to run in local Python environment or in Colab, sometimes it can generate, sometimes it cannot. So you need to try and see if the model can provide the answer you want. This is part of the instability of such kind of model, and you are going to see many cases as long as you use more and more of such models. Now let's go to case number 10, coding. So in this case, I'm going to use two models of ChatGPT, is a ChatGPT 4o and Canvas. So I'm going to prompt to get the code, then run in my Colab environment. So the code would be provide me with the Python code to run in Colab, getting a APL price trend, and conduct technical analysis to judge the buy or sell opportunity. Going to prompt both 4o model and also the 4o canvas model. As you see here, the display are quite different from each other. On the left hand side, you see is still the chat mode, and you see the result, you see the text block and also the code block. On the right hand side, it goes to the display of the code only. If you want to change it, you are going to see the update of the code on the right hand side, but on the left hand side, if you ask for change, it will generate a new response. So let's try first of all the left hand side code. Let's see if it works. Now let's copy the code here and run it. Okay, so there is an error about this code. I just copy and paste this error here and see if it can successfully debug. Okay, now let's copy it to Colab environment and run it. As you can see here, we have some results. For example, like the moving average, RSI, MACD, different technical analysis results. However, in the end, we still have an error here. Okay, so let's see if it can debug. So it is suggesting to change part of the code. Okay, we're going to copy and paste this part of the code and change it. Let's run it. Okay, there is still one error left. Let's try. I think this is an easy error to fix, importing pandas as PD. Let's see how it will modify the code. Yeah, you see here it adds this line. I think the package we do not need to install again. Let's just copy the rest of the code and run it. Let's copy and do here to a new code block. Let's run it. Okay, let's see. We have some results, right? We have some results about the stock price, analytical signals, the basic data I mean. But to judge the signal, it cannot give us answer, right? So in this case, it's not debugging the error. We do not have any bug to copy and paste, but we can describe the issue here. The signals are all NA, and see if it can understand and solve the issue. So this looks okay. We need to check the values, cross-check logic, extend the data range, and let's see. Well, let's check the data. Okay, and let's provide this data back to ChatGPT. Okay, so it identifies the issue is not about the code itself, it's about the data. Because during this period, there's no crossover of the moving average lines, so we do not have a clear buying or selling signal. So after several rounds of questioning and answering, I cannot get a successful result. So let's go to the right hand side. Now this time let's try the results provided by Canvas, because I believe there should be a crossover in the dataset. The problem is that in the previous code it cannot identify. Let's see this one. Okay, so the Canvas code, first of all, it directly outputs several timestamp or when there is a signal, and in general it looks more direct than the previous code version provided by 4o model. Now let's see because now we do not have error to debug, let's try to ask Canvas to improve the code. Can you improve the code to provide more explanation and show detailed data? So it will go to review the code line by line and change it. You see, it's a dynamic process, and eventually the final code will be provided on the same interface. You do not need to check another chat result. It is always here, so it's dynamically updating. And when you choose a specific block, you can ask ChatGPT, okay, and you can ask it to change or explain. So the result will be presented again by changing the code line by line. Let's try this code to see if it gives us additional results. I think the package we do not need to install again, so I'm going to put it in another cell. Let's run the code. Okay, so now it provides me additional statistical information about the price information, and then it shows the process of calculating the different metrics in the technical trading perspective, and then plots. Now the plots are the same as the previous one, and now you can see there is a trading volume under these charts, and for the buy sell signal there are very clear description. For example, this one is a sell signal, and in general it looks good, and these are detailed data with calculated indicators. Yeah, everything looks alright, and also there is a comment here. So this does not mean that the canvas model can always perform better than the formal model. It depends on the use case. But for the use case that I'm presenting you right now, canvas code give a zero shot best result, and full model cannot provide a zero shot best result, as you can see here. So for different scenario, I suggest you to try and to understand which model is the best for you. And of course, on the right hand side for the canvas version, you do not need to be worried about the model to forget some of the content, because it will always go through the code one line by line, and you do not need to worry. For example, we already have a back and forth 50 rounds of the chat, and maybe some of the information is missing. So for coding purpose, at this moment, I think a canvas is better. But if you want a conversational style, it is suggested to go back to the formal model, because you can see there is a structured conversation. You can also see both the code and the textual output together. Now, after we zoom out of the code interface of the canvas model, you can see the textual information is very limited, because all the change has already been applied inside of the code block. And for the full model, you can see that the code is always with the textual information. Case number 11, writing. Now I'm going to use the chain of thought model. It's called O1 preview with the canvas to write a catchy song. I'm choosing this use case instead of the coding, because coding task for preview always involve in a complicated thinking process. For a specific code block, it will take a lot of time to debug. Of course, you can try. But now I want to highlight is that the preview O1 preview model is going to think more than the other. And for the canvas model, you can change the part you want dynamically. So let's try it out. So I'm going to say, write a catchy children song about weather. Okay, and we prompt both models. You see the left-hand side, it goes into the thinking process, two-step, right? Creating lyrics and crafting the melody. And you can see it is well written. On the right hand side, we can see there is a verse and chorus almost similar, but the right hand side seems each line is shorter. Okay, so for the left hand side, we can see it took some time to think about the steps, then give you the result. On the right hand side, it gives you results directly. So if I want to change part of the text information, I can see, for example, I choose this part. I say, make this part longer. Okay. And in the canvas interface, you can see this part already has been changed to a longer version. Or in general, I want it to shorten the whole song. It will do rewriting of the whole song from the beginning to the end, right? And if we go to the preview model, we say change a specific part. We need to copy this part. Let's say change verse 4 to longer version. You will go to thinking, extending the verse, elaborating, expanding, and you see there are several steps under the hood of this model, and eventually you see the results. And you can see verse 4 was rewritten in a longer version. So let's see, make the song shorter. Yeah, then we have the shorter version. So this is a very simple task for both models. But if you want to do a project, my suggestion is that you can use preview model to give you a structure of your project, either to design an application or design a website and so on. But for the canvas, you will use it for like a coding, like a creative writing, is more convenient. Since if we go to the detailed example of preview to build a project, it will involve a lot of detailed steps. If you are interested, just leave a comment. In the future, I can make a video about it. At this moment, I just want to let you know the characteristics of the two models so you have a better sense. Case number 12. Now we are going to look at the case of using ChatGPT as a shopping list compiler. So for example, now I'm going to prompt make a shopping list of 1 kilo eggplant, 1 kilo rice, 1 kilo beef, 2 kilo apple, 10 kilo oil, 0.5 kilo bread with emoji. Let's prompt both the mini model and the full model. The reason I'm showing you these two models is that the mini model is a smaller model with a faster response, but the full model is the flagship model for ChatGPT at this moment. And we can see here both give results about our shopping list, but if you paid attention that for mini model it actually gives a faster response. So I would suggest you to use mini model for some smaller tasks where you want faster response, and full model you may use full model for more complicated tasks like coding and so on. You might have already noticed for the O1 mini model, for the preview model, you do not have chance to upload attachments. However, for the 4.0 model, you can do that. So you can interact with your documentation like PDF, like Excel, like picture, and so on. So you need to know that each model have different characteristics. You may interact with your chat information with different files, and the way you interact with the chat result, like a canvas and the 4.0, are quite different. And considering speed, the O1 preview model, the O1 small model, and the 4.0 model are all different. So please choose the models according to your task. The reason I'm showing you this shopping list example is that now whenever I go to supermarket, I find it sometimes very interesting to try these ideas with a large language model. Although it may not be very direct, like if you have already a shopping list application, but I think why not try it from time to time to see if it can help us with daily life tasks. So in this video, I have introduced you several use cases. For each use cases, we can expand for a larger group of use cases. So in case you are interested to explore some use cases, please leave a comment. If you like my video, feel free to share it, give it a like. And if you like my channel, please subscribe and see you next time. Bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel again. Today we are going to explore some additional functions, or we can say advanced functions of OpenWebUI. This is a tool which I introduced in some previous videos. It is a tool that will enable you to run large language models locally. You can link to the cloud-based large language model inference point, or you can link it to local Ollama to run it. Before we start, I would like to mention to you several logistics that we need to pay attention to. First of all, we need to have the Docker installed in our local environment, because I'm going to install this application OpenWebUI inside of the Docker and run it with the Docker. You also need Ollama to be installed to your local environment. or install Ollama in Docker environment. At this moment, since I tested the Docker version of Ollama, the inference speed is hugely impacted. So I'm going to use the local version of Ollama. Now, let's first install the OpenWeb UI. We can just copy this command. If you want to use other options, it is totally okay, but I just want to run OpenWeb UI with NVIDIA GPU support. I just wish that my inference speed would be faster. To run the command, you need to open your CMD, just copy, enter. It will make sure that everything will be installed. In the meantime, we can download the Ollama for Windows. In my case, it's Windows. In your case, if you have other operation systems, please choose accordingly. Now Ollama is successfully downloaded. We're going to open it and install it. Installing Ollama is very intuitive. You just click install and the program is going to run and set up everything. Now we have both Ollama and also the OpenWeb UI Docker version installed. Now, first of all, let's check Ollama. Now, Ollama is okay. Let's check the OpenWeb UI. Yeah, it is also installed properly, and now we can open the port to log in. We just click this port, and here we go. No matter if you have installed before or registered before, you can always choose to register again. Okay, you can try log in. If login is not okay, you can just sign up again. I'll just insert new information and create the account. Then here we are. Now we can choose a model. Now you can see now the model is not shown, which means that Ollama is not properly started. So we just go back and we choose Ollama serve. Okay, and let's check if we have any models. No. So we just pull a model, Llama 3.2 1B. Let's pull this model because it's a small size. We can try some very fast tests. Okay, now we're ready to go. Let's check Ollama list. Yes, we have this model. Let's try to refresh it. We can see this model. Yes, we have it. Now let's try to ask a quick question. Let's say, write me a simple Python code to display line graph. It will take some time. Yeah, but the speed is okay. As you can see here in the OpenWeb UI, now there is already a very beautiful display of the code and you can run the code. But if in your version you cannot run the code, I'm going to show you there are many functions and tools where you can install and try them. Let's try this one. We run this code. You're going to see here is a black box, which is the execution of the code. You're going to see this is the results. It is pretty awesome for you to try some small and sample code. Let's just say, try another case. Simulate movements of 3 stocks and show their technical buying points. I'm just giving a very general description. I'm not specifying which technical strategy to use. Let's just see. Okay, now we have this code simulated 3 stock price with random function. Now let's try it. Run this code. Yes. Now we have 3 stocks simulated. Here, however, the second one there is no result. I believe it's because the code, the range of the time is only 3 days. Let's just say increase simulation span to 200 days. Let's see. Okay, now we have the code. Let's see if we can simulate buy and sell signal. Okay, so now we have some error. Let's try to see if the model can actually debug this error. Okay, the problem is about the data frame should be the same in the same length. Okay, it seems that it has solved this problem. Let's see. Yeah, and you can see here are some buying and selling signals. Show them in the trend line graph. Yeah, let's try it. Okay, there is a problem. Let's see if it can debug. Okay, try this code. Okay, still problem with the array length. Let's try. Okay, so it seems that it cannot debug the issue. Okay, let's just try to simplify the code and retry. Okay, so it seems that there's still this error. Let's try something simpler. Sample code to show bar chart. It still takes from the previous prompt and the conversation, so it still focused on the closing price simulation. Anyway, let's see if we can have the graph display that we wanted. Okay. Anyway, let's just try forget previous conversation, show a sample code to print bar chart. Okay, it still takes some of the chart memory and show here. Okay, so now since the model has specific limits on the capability, I'm going to stop here. But as you can see here, the most important thing that you can use now with OpenWeb UI is if you are locally testing some of the models, you can just try to write some simple code without using too many logics or packages or outside APIs. Usually it should work. But if you need to have more interactions with the other environments, it is not very convenient because the best way is that you copy it out to VS Code or to Colab where you have the packages installed. Because here, if you try to install the package, it will not work. So now let's try other cases. Now let's go to the OpenWeb UI community page. In here, you can find some new functions, new tools, and many other content. So now let's just try this tool. It's called Stock Reporter. Okay, this tool will do a comprehensive stock analysis tool that gathers data from FinHub Free API and compiles a detailed report. Okay, in a more prudent way, you should check if this code is safe or not for you to run, because some of the code may not be very stable or may disclose your personal information and so on. So one of the quick way is to copy this whole text. And let's try to ask a large language model, is below code safe? Need to select model here, is below code safe? See, appears to be a part of an API client, FinHub. Okay, let's ask, is it safe for me to run? Yeah, authentication is a hard-coded API as expected because the author already mentioned it. Input validation, no checks of the input parameter. Okay, this is only error. Potential risk, data exposure. It will not touch my personal data, but I think it's fine. So at this point, I think it's fine. Yeah, API usage limits, it seems okay. So in general, I think it's okay for me to try. I'm going to try it. You just click get and it will import to your OpenWeb UI. Okay, I'm just going to log in again. Because the default mode, it opened my Windows browser, and here I'm still in Chrome web browser. There is no difference because you can run them simultaneously. In here, now I have opened. I try to get again. Import to web UI. You see here in tools, you have these tools imported. Let's just save it. It will ask you to confirm. And the reason that I did the security check is because here you see the warning. Please carefully review the following warnings. Okay. Tools have a function calling system that allows arbitrary code execution. Do not install tools from sources you do not fully trust. Okay, confirm. Now we can see here the tool is properly installed. Let's go to the model part. Let's see if we can assign this tool to the model. We can select the tool that we want to use here. Save and update, create a new chat. Let's try to select stock reporter and then save and update. Then let's come back to the chat page. Let's refresh, choose a model, and we have the stock reporter tool up and running. Let's select it and let's say report on AAPL analysis. We are seeing that there is a tool calling on this tool. Let's wait for a while. Let's see if it works. And you can see now there is already a response from the large language model. So I doubt if the renewed information could be incorporated into the result because the inference is already stopped. Well, After waiting for a while, I think it's not working properly because the latency is very significant. You can try it also on your machine, but for the moment, I'm going to stop this test on this tool. Let's try to find another tool. It's called code execution. You can just check here if you can find it. Yeah, you see here, this is a code running function where you can let the Open Web UI to run your code. But as I showed you before, I already have it in default mode, so I do not need to add additional tools or functions. But if you cannot find it in your version, do remember to try these tools to make sure that you can run the code in a very fast way, just to test some of the code that's generated, or you want to get some explanation and you want to test it right away. Install this function, you import it to Web UI, course, but now you see you are not in the tools part, you are in function part. If you are okay, you just save this code. Please do remember to do some security check. And now we have it in functions. You can enable it or disable it. It's based on your choice. Let's see how we can turn it on. So now let's activate this function or the subcategory as action. Let's enable it and let's refresh the page. Yeah, it's enabled, and we'll refresh our chat interface. Choose a model, and now I say write a simple sample code to display bar chart. Here we go. We have this bar chart. You remember in default mode we already have the run button here. We can run this code. But since now we have the run code action, we should have a function here. Now we do not see it. Let's see if we can refresh and see it again. No, it's not here. Let's try to disable it, see if we see anything change. Nothing changes. So I believe it could be that if we already have the default mode, we have the run button here, we do not see additional run code button, even if we activate this function. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. If you do not see this run button, try this function. And if you have any question, let me know. So now let's try something new. Of course, in here, as you can see, we can choose models. Okay, and if we choose a model, it will allow you to set up the system message for a model. And if we choose prompts for the information, document information extraction, this is just some prompt format created by the users. If you think it's useful, you can just save it. Okay, and also we can have tools and functions, as I already showed you before. You can search here. So now let's try the prompt. Okay, like Python expert. Okay, when you get the prompt, it will be saved here. And how do you activate it? You just go to the chat and you insert sign. It should appear. Okay, let's try again. Yeah, you can see here the prompt is here. You click and ready to be sent. You see here is the example, well-structured Python code. Here's to PEP 8 standards and with doc string very well structured. Let's try to run this code, see if the system would allow us to get some results. It's not bad. It's only the color we have some issue. And we have bar chart. So it works well. Now let's check if we could have something else to test. So let's see again about tools. There is a tool about enhanced web scraper. I think it could be useful. Let's try it. Yeah, save the tools. Okay, let's just go to a new chat, and we need to assign the tool to our model. Yeah, so let's refresh again, choose and see the tool. We have the enhanced web scraper tool, but it seems that it is not yet here. Let's try to deselect the others and just highlight the only one that we are caring about now. Let's see. So the update sometimes takes some time. Let's just restart a new page, choose our model. Yeah. So sometimes the refreshing speed is a little bit worrisome. Let's just try to actually delete these tools Let's see if we can resolve this issue. Okay, yeah. Now let's just try. Before we do anything, let's just see what it does. Improve the web scraping tool that extracts text information using a GenAI reader. Okay, and let's see. Let's try to scrape a linear regression Wikipedia page. Let's see if it works. Wow, this works very fine and it gives you code example, and we can run the code. It's about the prediction of a Y label. It looks okay, and there is also the R code, but as you can see here, we cannot run R. Usually we can run Python, but in general this works fine. There are some tools that we cannot use successfully. I'm not sure if this is a problem about the model or about the tool. Okay, it could be both. Now let's go deeper with this current application of this tool. Let's try here. Ask a question. What does it mean? Okay, so it actually allow me to ask a specific question or choose a specific part to ask a specific question and give me an additional response. Yeah, let's see here. Can we do this? We can also say explain. So it will just explain this part. Looks okay. And if we go to ask part of the code, can we do it? Yes, we can ask it to explain. However, whenever I use such function, it seems that the chat after this part will be erased and you are going to start a new chat. Well, in general, it looks fine. Okay, we can get additional insight, additional information, additional explanation, and so on. Okay, so far, we have done some tests about different tools and functions. It seems that the web scraping tool is working fine. Now, let's see if we can test some other functions. Let's try this artifact. Yeah, artifact v2. It is inspired by cloud artifacts. If you have already used the cloud model, it actually can render some of the React application or HTML in a very good way. Let's try it. So we just add it into function, just confirm. And I think run code we do not need to use now. We just use artifact and let's try. So basically, I would say design a good looking blog HTML page. I need to choose my model first. Design a good blog page. Okay, in HTML. Should have said in the beginning. Now we have the HTML code. And let's see if the filter can actually render this HTML directly. Okay, so we have the artifact up and running, but we do not see anything rendered. But if we go here, as you already see, even without this filter, let's try to delete it. Delete everything just to make sure that there is no overlapping or some potential issue. Okay, the scraping tool we can leave it there. Let's try. Okay, refresh this page of the chat. Then we click here artifacts. Okay, there's no HTML content found. Let's try output only HTML. Output only HTML. Here we have HTML. Let's see if we can show them in artifacts. No. Okay, now let's try the function again. Artifact 2. Save it. Let's also check our model specification. We need to activate artifact. Let's see. Let's try start a new chat. Let's looking blog HTML page. Yeah, now there is a button called run. Let's try it. Okay, so this does not mean we can run the artifact. This is the same as previous code running, and we still do not have any chance to render it. Let's try artifact. Now it still says no content found. Yes. Let's try to see again. Function should work. Try refresh again just to make sure. No, not working. Okay, no, it's not activated. Sorry. Now let's activate it and refresh our chat. We should have it. No. Okay, let's try again. Sample HTML. Okay, now it seems to be working, and let's see how can we try it. If we go to artifact, yes, now we have it. So basically you need to install the filter, activate, link to your model, and then you can have the rendered HTML display. So let's see if we can have something more complicated. HTML to show the whole process of transformer dynamically. Well, I tried it in cloud model. It was okay. Now let's try here. Okay. So we do not necessarily need to close the window. We can just wait. Well, it seems okay. Let's say input value 12 and let's submit. Okay, it also downloaded the HTML in my local machine. Well, nothing shows. Improve. Yeah, it will refresh automatically. Version 2. Okay, input value 12, results 12. 1, result 1. Yeah, not working very well, but in general we have an idea. So I think if we use more advanced frontier model, we can have better results, of course. But now I'm just going to show you what I'm testing in my local environment. And it's totally free, so you can do as many tests, as many exploration as you want. Okay, so now we have figured out how to use the filter. Okay, now let's go back. At this moment, there is one more thing that I want to share with you, is that we can see here there is overview. You can see it's like a workflow, dynamic workflow. It is very nice. If we choose the other, for example, this one, chat we had, we can see the whole process, right? And also let's try something longer, like this one. We can see actually the conversation has been going for a while, and we can also give it a like. This dynamic display is very interesting. Let's try deep LX translate. Let's try this one. Okay, we have done. Let's go to models. Yeah, let's cancel the others. Let's save. Okay, let's try. Choose model, and let's see, this function is called translate. Okay, translate homicide to Chinese. It's very interesting. Actually, it automatically translates the information to my native language. Let's just try another one. Scrivermi una lettera. Okay, I'm just asking the model to write me a letter. It says it cannot create any risky words. That's in Chinese. Looks good. Let me try write a short story. Let's see. Keeps on writing. Memory weaver. It translates the response instantly, and it is actually using the deep LX. I think the quality is good. Okay, let's try more tool to transcript provider. Let's try to say YouTube video about machine learning. Okay, this one. Let's copy the link, come back, and let's see. In the meantime, okay, clear. So we go inside and copy this one, copy this link. Okay, so it wants me to insert a title. Let me try. I'll determine YouTube video ID. So where is the video ID? Let's try again. So let's take a look at all the tools we have. YouTube transcript provider. Yeah. So it actually needs something. Okay, I am talking about the video in free code camp. Summarize the video. Well, it looks okay. How about the video of NG? Yeah, show URL. Okay, so summarize latest YouTube video on US election. Okay, not working well. So you can see there are some limits, there are some applications possibilities where you can explore. So I'm going to stop here. So now one last thing, let's try this code writer. Let's try to get it actually impose the system prompt. So it is not actually a new model. It is actually using a structure designed system prompt. Let's try here. Okay. Python code to get a to analyze AAPL goes straight to the problem itself, and there's no additional wording here, right? Yeah, of course, this is the issue I have not yet debugged. It's about the installation of the packages in the code environment. Now let's try another one. Sample code to show all types of data visual. Yeah, seems okay. Let's try it. We have bar chart, line plot, scatter plot, histogram, box plot. Okay, first one looks okay. Okay, let's try to see if it can debug. Please always bear in mind, we are using a lightweight local model, so we cannot expect the model to perform extremely well, like ChatGPT 4.0 and so on. Let's try to run again this code. Yeah, we have one chart. Okay, but these buttons seems like a bug. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. So now we have explored the different tools offered by OpenWebUI. So we have the chance to impose or set up some of the system prompt to make hypothetical or simulated new models based on the base model. We use the pre-designed prompts to get results. We try the tools where we can always find here, and we can use each tool by activating it. We have also tried different functions which linked to the model, and we can utilize it while we are in the conversation. So there are so many things that we can explore in the future. I wish you really like this video. If you have any question, feel free to leave a comment, and if you really like my channel, please subscribe. I hope this video is useful for you, and see you next time. Bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel again. Today we are going to talk about cloud. It is very similar to ChatGPT, but it has some very unique characteristics I would like to explore with you. So in this video, you are going to get some useful tips. These tips will mainly focus on the prompts and how we use this chatbot. Just a brief intro. Cloud is developed by Anthropic. To try it, you just need to click Try Cloud in their main page and log in. And then we're going to focus on two objectives. One is to use step-by-step unstructured prompts to get what we want. The other example is to use, and there are also some examples focused on structured prompts, which we may self-design a structured prompt or ask another large language model to give us a structured prompt and feed into cloud. So now let's dive into the step-by-step prompt scenarios. Since I'm using the free tier plan, at this moment I do not have additional quota for my tokens, so I'm just going to show you the past chat records and to show you the cases. The first one is interactive transformer visualization app. At first, I just asked the model to design a dynamic app to show how transformer works, be as detailed as possible, be engaging, elegant UI. So I do not have a very structured prompt, and the model starts to write the code. I see this artifact showing on the right hand side. You can see the code part was the whole coding process displayed on the right hand side. After the model finishes writing all the code, you can preview it. So you can see here, it actually shows you some of the most important parts, important steps of transformer model. Of course, sometimes when you run it, it may not meeting your expectation. You can always improve, but at this stage you can try to run it. You can see it is dynamic and shows you a general idea of transformer from a zero shot point of view. Now we already have something that we can work on. As you can see on the left hand side, we have some description about the key features, key aspects of the app designed by this model. And in general, it looks good as a starting point. As you can see here, if we go to the final step, our output is just a reverse sequence of the input stream. So this is not as we expected. However, we can ask it to improve this app. Let's say show also matrix calculation simulation. Then it correctly displayed that the animation will reach the self-attention step and will display Q, key, V matrices and attentions and output matrices. Now let's take a look at this one. Okay, so if we try it, you can see here it is not working. There is an error. So in this case, usually you can click here to ask the model to debug it, or you can just on the left hand side ask it to redo and write your concerns or the issues you meet. So it will go on again. Usually, if you are in the free tier plan, it is very likely that you need to ask several times to get a very useful result. As you can see, until here, I said debug and improve, nothing happens. Until here, after several rounds of chat, now we can have something including both the input string, transformer process, and also the matrices, the Q, V, K, attention, and output matrices. Of course, it's not 100% accurate, but at least now we have something displayed here. So let's see. I find it too simplified. I want it to highlight the stepwise calculation results. Let's see. Actually, here you can see in each step, it actually separates the different matrices inside of each step. So whenever you see it dynamically here, you're going to see each step involves different matrices. This is improvement, but as you can see, it is still far away from how transformer model actually works, because it's only showing partial information. Eventually, I hit the limit, so I did not go on with the improvement. But at this point, you have two choices. You can debug this code by yourself, improve this code by yourself, and run it in environment about the React application. Or if you are in paid plan, you can keep asking questions to improve the app. Or as an alternative, you can just copy this code and ask in another model to improve. The next example I'm going to show you is also the step-by-step prompt. So in this chart, I asked it to provide me dynamic chart showing macro indices for Eurozone for the last available data. And it gave me, first of all, an empty chart, but it mentioned some of the information here, but we do not see the data. So I say, I see nothing, and ask it to improve. Actually, at this step, it shows me some figures about the yearly GDP, inflation, and unemployment of the Eurozone. I suppose this information comes from its training data, because I do not see any citations here or available links. Of course, you can add such requirements in your prompt to get a fully cited data. Then I say I need a bar chart, line chart type of thing. It's a very general prompt. The first attempt, we got error. Then I said nothing showed. First of all, it redo the table or tabular information to display to me how these data evolve in the past years. I think this is an improvement because it comes back to check the data and display in a structured way. So I asked it to show me the bar chart. Let's see. This is very interesting because this is not a dynamic bar chart. If you use Python, you know Plotly, you know different packages to show the data dynamically, either bar chart or scatter plot. But this one was out of my expectation. So the model actually is showing the bar charts in a very different way. It is not showing the results in an elegant display, but it is use the ASCII code. It's just showing you some black boxes and simulate a bar chart. As you can see here, we have a scale that each black box equals 2 units for GDP, 1 unit for inflation and unemployment. Now, let's go to another example. In this example, I'm evaluating the question and answering responses of a different large language model. If you saw my previous video, you know I did some tests about Notebook LM, a new product created by Google, and it can help you summarize and retrieve information from the information you provided. I asked Cloud to evaluate each of the responses. As you can see here, some of the information are pasted here, some of them are TXT file. So no matter which is the format, you can feed to the prompt altogether. Then I said I use as many as measurements possible on judging below QA quality, show results in a table chart. The first attempt, as you can see here, the artifact failed to load, which means it's not working. Then we try to improve, and you can see this bar chart. Okay, from a UI point of view, it is better than the previous chart that I showed you, because in this bar chart you can see it is dynamic. When you hover the pointer above each data, you're going to see annotations about the name and average score. Okay, in general, it looks good. I also asked it to provide a valuation grid, which means that I wanted to see details of the valuation, not just the average one. But unfortunately, the model does not provide me evaluation grid. Then I ask it to actually show me the table. You can see here, there is a table of the evaluation of each QA document. And you can see it evaluated the consistency, clarity, completeness, accuracy, simplicity, and the average score. Then I ask it to show me a dynamic table. No, it cannot. So in this case, we actually feed into the prompt with multiple information. It can help us to evaluate, to summarize, and provide us dynamic display. But please pay attention, at least in the free tier model, it cannot always successfully show you the data visualization in the artifact. Now let's take a look at some examples of structured prompt. First of all, I'm going to use step-by-step prompt to show you the first results. Then we take a look at the structured prompt case. So my use case is to design a Russian cubic game and demo it. So it actually annotates the game in Russian also, and the artifact can be run. Let's see, you can just play the game. You see, in general, it looks good. Let's see if it can cancel. Yeah, it seems to be working. And we can also see the score here. As you can see on the left-hand side, it also describes how this game is designed. Then I ask it to improve the UI. Let's see. Okay, after the improvement, you can see the UI is much user-friendly because you can see each box now is not so rigid. It has some curves in the points. Let's try. Yeah, it is working. Okay, it is working. But as you can see, if I long press the down button, it does not go faster. So there could be many different details that you can improve. And I say further improve and allow the speed up function. And let's see. So in this case, let's see if we can speed up. No, we cannot speed up. Let's try it again. Okay, we can turn, we can drop, but we cannot speed up. We can move, no problem. Well, whenever I click drop, the shape just stayed in the middle. This is kind of a creative design of the game. Let's take a look. Because it's not meeting my expectation, I ask it to redo. As you can see here, the UI seems to be going back. Okay, not so good. And let's see if it works. No, nothing works because you do not see the shapes here. Whenever I refresh, you can see there is a prediction of next piece, but I do not see the shape. So it describes the detail of how it designed the game, but it does not work. Okay, in this case, you see I did the step-by-step prompt. We have some nicely designed game and also some failed cases. But one thing I want to mention to you is that there are some advantages to use a simpler step-by-step prompt because the process brings you more clarity. You can manipulate some incremental changes to your results getting from the large language model. Now, let's take a look at the structured prompt. So basically, I go to ChatGPT, I say, design a comprehensive prompt to ask Cloud to design a dynamic React game of Russian cubic. So it actually gave a very detailed description, like game overview, key features, and it is very comprehensive. And especially, it mentioned the game logic, which I think for the designing of the game, before we go into the graphics, game logic is relevantly more important. So let's take a look at the result from Cloud. As you can see here, this is a very long prompt. It starts to design the game. Let's see. The reason that in this case we do not see some artifacts is because now it offers a more structured game design. So it's not like one React file will be run successfully because it may have some interconnections with other files. It's like when you write a Python program. Okay, you have the main.py, it will interact with others. It's the same logic behind. As you can see, there is a code written, but we do not see preview. As I said, I think the main issue is that now we have more comprehensive structure, so the model itself cannot handle the artifact successfully. Then we can see here are different files. Like this one is about the shapes and functions. This is an independent file. Of course, you cannot get any preview. You have a gain helper function and different file. Okay, I did not try it in my local environment. I just want to show you. First, if you have a structured prompt, actually the result will be also structured, but it is not so easy to manipulate because now you can see you have so many different building blocks. You need to test and try each part, not necessarily in the cloud environment. You may need another environment to test it. So I mentioned some of the errors it shows, and it kind of go to the debug process, and there are some updated code. But again, here preview, we see nothing. Then I asked, can you simplify and show me a demo right away? It did, and as you can see here, this is the demo it gave me. I can only add random pieces, but there's no game playing here. So I'm going to the next prompt. I describe the issue and see if it can solve it. As you can see, I can speed up. I can see the shapes dropping down, but I only see one shape, is a 1 cubic at a time. So at this moment, I reached the chat limit. I get this demo, this simplified demo, although it does not have a very elegant UI, but it seems to be working. And I also have a structured result, like the previous chat. We can see different components of the application. We may try it in local environment or in another environment. Now let's check another case. In this case, I'm asking ChatGPT to give me a structured prompt to ask a cloud to produce the Apple stock analysis report. So the prompt is structured as company overview, financial performance, stock performance, valuation, growth, prospects, recommendations. In general, it looks good. It also said make sure to set relevant data and provide clear and concise insights in each section. Looks good. And let's go to see how the model responds. After the prompt, it first gave me this artifact about the report. Remember, this artifact is shown on the right-hand side. It did not produce the report on the left-hand side as part of the plain text response. As you can see, the format is very good. As you can see, some of the titles are in bold format, and in general, it is structured well. But please pay attention. Most of the numbers are hypothetical, which means that these are all made-up numbers. But some of the recent developments, it looks okay. I doubt they are the most recent. As you can see here, it said my knowledge cutoff was April 2024. Then we can also take a look at the stock performance. Since they are all hypothetical, we just have a general idea about the report layout, but these data cannot be utilized. Also, the valuation, it is good. It shows the P ratio for PE and so on. Growth aspect, growth prospect, generally it looks good. And also risk and challenges, and eventually a recommendation. It is a bit close to the real scenario when the analyst analyzes a stock. But since some of the information are not reliable, we cannot use it. Then I said, can you cite real-time sources and make numericals in graphs? The first response, the model actually denied me for the 2 requests. First of all, it said I need to find the real-time numbers by myself from different sources. Then about the visual, I needed to do it by myself using Excel, Google Sheets, or so on. And it gave me some recommendations which data could be potentially visualized using different data visualization. However, I said only make the data you gave to visuals. Right, so I just want to see how it transfers the data to visualization. It actually used the artifact to show some of the data. It looks good, but some artifacts does not work. Like this one is YTD stock performance comparison. About valuation, there is a table display, looks good, and it also made some additional comments, like some of the charts it did not provide. It provided me some ideas how to create them. So in general, you can see regarding the structured prompts, like generating reports and so on, the model will respond with a very organized information format, like this one is a report format, and you can also keep on asking to improve some of the parts. But at this moment, it cannot just improve the existing report. For example, ask for visuals. It cannot just add me another graph on the right-hand side of the data. In this test, we can see structured prompt can in fact ask the model to generate more structured layout, but for some details, we still need to be prudent because like the data citation, like the visualization, like your additional requirements. Let's conclude this video. So I have shown you two different types of interaction with cloud model. One is with a step-by-step prompt, the other is with structured prompt. As you can see, in the step-by-step prompt case, you can do more detailed manipulation about the interaction with the model, get step-by-step results, and you can also see clearly the incremental results and improve your understanding of the process. We have tried the case to visualize transformer model mechanism, to gather and visualize economic data, and to evaluate Q&A transcript from other models. In the structured prompt case, usually we can have more comprehensive output, which will require us more time to investigate each component, to review or debug, either in the programming case or in the report generation case. We have tried two cases. One is to build a Russian cubic game. The other is to generate a stock analysis report. So I wish this video is useful for you. If you like my video, feel free to give it a like, leave a comment. If you like my channel, please subscribe, and see you next time. Bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to Learn by Doing channel. In today's session, we are going to explore two different ways to train and visualize the neural network, both on the training side and also in the final results. We are going to use NumPy, Matplotlib, and sklearn. Different packages will be deployed, and we are going to see how in details we can manipulate these projects. The first version, we're going to introduce the interactive widgets to allow you to manipulate the different parameters and see the neural network training process dynamically. The second version, we are going to print out many different versions of the neural network training process to let you understand and get an intuitive impression of this machine learning structure. By the end of this walkthrough, you will understand how weights are updated, how to visualize the learning process, and you will also be able to try it by yourself to test and to manipulate the code to better learn artificial neural network. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe for more hands-on tutorials. Now, let's go to the code. First of all, we choose the Iris dataset. Before we jump into the code in detail, let's briefly introduce the Iris dataset. It is a classic dataset that's widely used for machine learning demonstrations. The dataset contains 150 samples, each representing a type of iris flower. It includes 4 different features for you to identify the type of the flower, and these features help classify the flowers into 3 different species: Certosa, versicolor, and virginica. The goal of this tutorial is to train a neural network to classify each sample based on the input features. This makes the Iris dataset an excellent starting point for beginners in machine learning and the neural network. Now let's take a look at the first version of the code is interactive neural networks with widgets. In this first version, we've incorporated interactive widgets that allow you to customize the neural network's architecture and the learning process on the fly. You can modify the number of layers, neurons per layer, activation function, and the learning rate without touching the code directly. So as you can see here, after running this code, you have this navigation pane where you can change the different parameters, layout of the neural network. So you can try to see how different type of the neural network can be trained and get different results. In this code, first of all, we need to prepare the different dependencies. Now we start the first step, loading the Iris dataset. We start by loading the Iris dataset. The dataset is small but excellent for demonstrating neural networks. It contains 150 samples, each with 4 input features and 3 target classes. Then we prepare the input features X, target label Y for the training. Step number 2, we pre-process the data to prepare them ready for training. We use one-hot encoding to convert categorical labels into binary vectors, which is necessary for multi-class classification in a neural network. Then we train test split the dataset, which means that we split the data into training and test datasets 80% of the data is used for training, 20% of the data is used for testing. Then we also normalize the features. Normalizing the feature will speed up the convergence of the neural network by ensuring that all the features have similar scale. Step 3. Now we are introducing the widgets for dynamic interaction. First of all, we need to add the widgets that allow you to customize the neural network structure and the parameters dynamically. You can adjust the number of layers, neurons per layer, activation function, and the learning rate, all without modifying the code manually. So in this way, we can have a very dynamic display, as you can see after running this code. And here we can set the number of layers using the slider, specify the number of neurons in each layer by entering the values separated by commas, like this example here. The first layer is 4 neurons, second layer 5 neurons, third layer 3 neurons. Then we can have different activation functions. As you can see here, we have sigmoid, tan, relu. These widgets give you full control over the network structure and the training parameters without modifying the code. In the end, we need layout of the widgets to actually make sure all the widgets we set above will be shown correctly. Part number 4, as you can see here, we need to define the different activation function and their relevant derivative format. In this way, we are going to use these functions in the training process. Then, step number 5, we are building the build and train model function. In this function, we are going to initialize the weights and biases and also keep tracking the weight, W1, W2, loss, and accuracies. In this way, we are going to keep all these calculation results in the process and shown eventually. Then, after choosing the activation function, we are going to move to two most important parts of the neural network training. Forward propagation is going to get our input feature and reach to the final output of the neural network. Back propagation is going to do the reverse and use gradient descent and chain rule to adjust the weights and the biases to reduce the error. Then during the training process, of course, as a result, we need to update the parameters accordingly, and we also need to compute the loss value. Then there will be the training loop with the progress bar. The reason I'm adding the progress bar is to understand where we are during this training process, especially when you train the neural network with large data sets. This is quite important because you can understand where you are. Then in this loop, we are actually implementing the whole training process from forward propagation to backward propagation, and then update parameters, then track the weights and losses for our later data visualization and comparison. Then we also compute our accuracy and print out each epoch how is the loss and the accuracy value. Then we also have the softmax function for the output layer. Part number 6, visualization function to plot loss and then we also have the function to plot loss and accuracy. In addition, we have the 3D gradient descent plot to visualize the gradient descent process, where we are tracking the loss value as we update the weight W1 and W2. The code seems a little bit long, but the main purpose is that we want to anchor our visual to some parameters and see how the loss value could change after each training step. And we also added several parameters to make sure that we can view the 3D graph from different angles. Of course, you can also update this part to use Plotly or other packages to get more dynamic visual. But for me, I just use this simple version. They are static, but the general workflow is smooth and fast. Then we also have the VBox to accumulate the results of multiple runs. Part number 7, also the final part, is to design this run button for us to initiate the whole process and also to display the interface. So in this part, we make sure that whenever we finish setting the different parameters and we click run artificial neural network, and we are going to see the different neural network being trained and showing us the results, as you can see here. Now let's quickly review some of the results we did before. For example, the first one, we have a 3-layer neural network with 4, 5, 3 counts of neurons in each layer. We use sigmoid as activation function inside the neural network, and we have a learning rate of 1%. And you can see this is the training process with the decreasing loss value and increasing accuracy value, and this is a plot about loss and accuracy after each epoch. And also we can see the 3D display of the learning process. This display is not comprehensive, means that it cannot include all the scenarios. For example, we are now only picking 2 weights value from the whole training process. As you know, we have many weights and we have many neurons in the neural network. It is not so easy to see the display of all the parameters alongside with the loss value. But here we pick these 2 weights just to let you know that this is a dynamic process, and you can also adjust the values you want to display in the 3D graph. For example, you can choose other values other than the weights I picked here. As you can see, the loss value reached to the lowest point from the highest point. As you can see, the first one on the left, the starting point, we have weight 1 as 0.46, weight 2 0.11, and loss value 1.9. And it will go to the middle point, the green dot. We see the weights are updated and the loss value becomes 0.77. Then we come to the end, we have 2 weights, W1, W2, and also the lowest loss. So in this way, you can have an idea that this process is dynamic. But remember, the loss value is actually attached to a multi-dimensional parameter involvement. So you can try to visualize it with some of the parameters, but to visualize all the parameters changing together with the loss is quite challenging. And we as human, I think the 3D display is our limit about the visual side. That being said, as you can see, we can change the different parameters and see different neural network can be trained and how the loss value can evolve. Me personally, I prefer such kind of visual for me to learn better how the model are trained, how the values are changed and updated, and also help me improve the understanding. Now let's take a look at the version 2 of the code. So basically the process does not change much, but only in this version, I do not rely on clicking the run button to run the neural network. I actually use the code to generate the grid of the different training process directly with different setting of the neural network structure and activation function and so on. As you can see below, after running the code, I'm going to see this grid of the graph. So now, as you can see, you have a visual comparison of different artificial neural network structures. So with this kind of comparison, you can either choose the model that you prefer with different metrics comparison, or you can even dive deeper. For example, you want to understand why the different activation function could make the neural network behave differently. You can also get some insights from such kind of comparison. As you see, the first block is about the sigmoid activation function. The second one is about the temp activation function. The last one, of course, is about the ReLU activation function. You see different activation function, different neural network structure. We have the different involvement or different trend of the loss, accuracy, and also the involvement of the gradient descent procedure. So I do encourage you to compare these different models both from a very strict sense, like the loss value, accuracy value, and different metrics, and also from the visual side. You can also compare them to, first of all, to learn about the different neural networks, and also to make better decisions to best utilize this model to your use case. So basically today we have gone through 2 versions of the code to train the neural network and visualize the neural network. Of course, we could have more detailed display and we could add additional metrics to see the comparison of the models. But at this moment, I wish you could get some insights. If you prefer the visual comparison, this is an example that you can incorporate into your analysis, your research. I really wish that this video could be good inspiration for you. If you like my video, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share. And please stay tuned for Learn by Doing channel. See you next time. Bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel again. Today, I'm going to walk you through the analysis of YouTube recommendation algorithm. This is a hands-on and very quick, short data science project. We are going to explore how the platform of YouTube lures users with different types of content and adjusts recommendations over time. So the first step, we need to prepare the data. There are usually two ways that we can prepare the data with the help of ChatGPT or other models. First of all, we can copy paste the video titles to ChatGPT and ask it to organize it into a data frame, or we can take a screenshot and ask ChatGPT to build the data frame by extracting the textual information. If you want to test several rounds of the data, for example, each time when you refresh the YouTube front page, you are going to see different video names. You can input the textual information or image information to ChatGPT one by one. Then eventually it will prepare the data frame for you. So in this case, I'm going to test what if I do not click any video in the front page of YouTube. How does the algorithm change the recommendation style in the front page? So once the data was collected, like I said, with the help of ChatGPT or other models, we can have the CSV format data prepared, and we can upload using this code block and start analyzing. In the code, we import different dependencies as we needed, then we upload the file to Colab environment, and eventually we read this data frame to prepare for further analysis. Each row representing a video category, and the columns represented different rounds of YouTube's homepage recommendations. So, for example, when I log into the front page, I see the round 1 recommendation list. Then I refresh, I get round 2, then round 3. Of course, now if you are using Colab, you can print the data frame directly, so you can manipulate and see visualization directly. Then, if you have multiple rounds or additional rounds of the data, you can also merge the different data frames. In here, I'm using the code to actually merge two separate data frames. Of course, this is optional. If you can build up the data frame one shot, you can do it. And then we can use different visualization tool like this one. I just do a very simple visual, and according to the categories set up by ChatGPT, we can see that in the beginning, the percentage of the different categories are quite large. And since I'm not clicking any video, so the algorithm is kind of shrinking the existing category and make some emerging categories. It's like doing some tests. And you can see here, after round 11, there is a more drastic improvement in an independent category, is a general entertainment. So from this, we can see that YouTube is trying to guess what the users like. From these experiments, we can see that if we don't click some of the video type, it will find some correlated categories and put into our feed to let us choose. Of course, as you can see the category, we have some very general and also some very detailed categories. Of course, you can try to merge them and see them more clearly. But at this point, I think I already get the idea that the algorithm works as I expected. Then if we use Plotly, we can see then more dynamically, we can select or deselect some of the categories I want to see or do not want to see. As you can see here, we are seeing that more categories are emerging after certain rounds of inactivity of the user. So the algorithm is trying to guess the user's preference and also keep the user. But as far as I know, all the social media platforms we are using, they are using very complicated machine learning algorithms in the backstage. They can understand your personal information, how to match different personal information to different videos, and have you stay on the platform for a longer time. Of course, there are different variations of the test of such algorithm topic, but for today, I'm going to stop here. This is a very quick and usually take you a very little time to prepare the raw data to get some insights eventually. If you like this kind of exploration, please leave a comment and let me know. And if you like my video, give it a like. If you like my channel, please subscribe and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey there. We're all used to AI helping us out these days, like think Copilot suggesting code or ChatGPT whipping up a poem. But what if your AI could actually do things on your computer?
Like booking a whole vacation?
Yeah.
Or filing your expense reports?
It's a whole different ballgame, right?
Right. We're talking about AI agents that don't just understand information, but can actually interact with the digital world, make decisions, and take action.
Exactly. And that's what we're deep diving into today. Microsoft's Windows Agent Arena. They've created this whole research project dedicated to developing and testing AI agents that can use Windows apps, just like we do.
It's a massive undertaking. Imagine trying to teach a robot to navigate all the complexities of a computer interface.
Right.
These agents have to see the screen, understand what they're looking at, text, buttons, icons, then actually click, type, open apps, all to achieve some goal.
It's like they're learning to play a video game, but the game is our entire digital world. And Microsoft has really gone all out building this virtual arena to run a ton of these agents at the same time, all trying to complete different tasks.
It's a brilliant approach because it allows researchers to test and compare different types of agents and see what works best. Imagine trying to train hundreds of these agents individually. It would take forever.
Yeah.
This cloud parallelization dramatically speeds up the research process.
So it's not just about building cool AI, it's about building it efficiently. And speaking of cool AI, what kind of stuff are they actually getting these agents to do?
Well, they've designed over 150 different tasks for these agents to tackle. And they haven't just gone to the easy stuff. They've included everything from basic web browsing to editing documents, even getting creative in Paint.
Okay, so they're not just checking boxes.
Right.
They're really putting these agents through their paces.
Yeah.
But I'm dying to see this in action.
Well, you're in luck. They've actually released videos of the agents working their magic. It's pretty mind-blowing to watch them navigating menus, clicking buttons, and typing commands, all without any human intervention.
Okay, I'm sold. Let's see what these digital wizards can do. Whoa! That was impressive. It figured out exactly where to go, downloaded the extension, and even restarted VS Code when it needed to. I could definitely use an agent to handle my software updates.
It's amazing to see how far this technology has come. But what's really interesting is that these agents aren't just programmed with specific instructions for each task. They're actually learning and adapting, using a combination of supervised and reinforcement learning techniques.
So they're not just following a script, they're actually figuring things out on their own.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And it makes me wonder, what are these agents really good at right now? What kind of tasks have they nailed?
Well, they're particularly good at tasks that involve specific step-by-step instructions. For instance, they can easily enable privacy settings in Edge, switch your default search engine to Bing, even change default recording folders. All things that we often have to dig through menus to find.
Okay, so they're masters of the mundane. I can already see how this could free up a ton of time, but I'm guessing they're not perfect, right? What are some of the things that trip them up?
You're right. Even the most advanced agents are still works in progress. The best ones are only solving about 20% of the tasks flawlessly.
Yeah.
Compared to about 75% for a human.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how complex it is to truly understand and interact with the computer environment.
Yeah, I guess it's easy to take for granted how much intuition and common sense we use when navigating our digital world. So what's the bottleneck here? What's holding these agents back from achieving that human-level performance?
Well, it really boils down to the challenge of converting visual information into actionable insights. The agent has to see the screen and understand the context of what it's seeing, and that's where things can get tricky.
So it's not just about recognizing buttons and text, it's about understanding what those things actually mean in the context of a specific task.
Exactly. And to do that, they use a two-step process. First, they use a model called OmniParser to analyze the screen. It's kind of like the agent's eyes, scanning the screen and breaking down the visual information into text, icons, and image regions.
Okay, so that's how they see, but how do they decide what to do with all that information?
That's where the real brain power comes in, a powerful language model called GPT-4v. OmniParser feeds all that visual information to GPT-4v, which then tries to figure out the best course of action based on the task at hand.
So OmniParser is the eyes and GPT-4v is the brain, making sense of it all and coming up with a plan.
Exactly. But even with this powerful combination, things can still go wrong. Sometimes the agent might misinterpret the visual information, Or GPT-4V might come up with a plan that doesn't quite work in practice.
It sounds like there's a lot of room for error. So even with all this fancy AI, they still mess up sometimes. Give us some examples. What kind of fails are we talking about?
Well, one example is the task of drawing a red circle in paint. Seems like a simple enough task for a human, but it turns out to be quite challenging for the agent to execute those precise mouse movements and color selections.
So even something as basic as drawing is tricky. What other kind of errors do they make?
Another interesting example is changing an edge profile name. This is where those reasoning errors can pop up. The agent might understand the concept of a profile name, but get confused about how to navigate the menus or input the new name correctly.
So it's like they have the knowledge, but not always the know-how. It's fascinating to see where they excel and where they struggle. And I bet watching these failures is just as valuable for the researchers as watching the successes.
Absolutely. By analyzing these failures, they can identify the agent's weaknesses and develop strategies to overcome them.
It's like they're constantly learning and evolving, just like we do. But all this raises some interesting questions, especially about where this technology is headed.
It really makes you wonder, what's the next step for these AI agents? Are they going to be our digital assistants, taking over all the tedious tasks we hate doing?
Now, that's a future I could get behind. Just imagine, no more sifting through endless emails, struggling with clunky software, or wrestling with online forms.
Oh, yeah.
Our AI agents would handle it all, leaving us free to focus on the things we actually enjoy.
Exactly. Think about all the time we could save. We could be more productive at work, pursue creative hobbies, or simply spend more time with loved ones.
It sounds almost too good to be true. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. These agents are still pretty far from perfect, right?
That's true. But the progress they've made in just a few years is remarkable. And the research being done at Windows Agent Arena is accelerating that progress. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what these agents can do.
So what's next? What kind of breakthroughs are we looking for in the near future?
Well, one of the most exciting areas of development is in natural language processing. Imagine being able to interact with your AI agent, just like you would with another person.
Okay, yeah.
You could simply tell it what you need, and it would understand and execute your request.
Wow, that would be a game changer. No more memorizing complex commands or clicking through endless menus. It would be like having a personal assistant who can anticipate your needs and seamlessly integrate with your digital life.
Exactly. And as these agents become more sophisticated, they could start collaborating with each other, forming complex networks that can solve problems far beyond the capabilities of any single agent.
So instead of having one agent for email, one for scheduling, and another for web browsing, they could all work together, sharing information and coordinating their actions.
Precisely. It's like having a team of digital experts working behind the scenes to make your life easier and more efficient.
Now, that's what I call a dream team. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the potential downsides. I mean, this all sounds pretty incredible, but are there any risks we should be aware of?
Of course. With any powerful technology, there are always potential risks.
Right.
One concern is the possibility of unintended consequences.
Oh, yeah.
As these agents become more autonomous, we need to make sure they are aligned with our values and goals. We don't want them to optimize for something that ends up being harmful or unethical.
So that's a really important point. We need to make sure these agents are working for us, not against us. It's like with any tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have open and honest conversations about the ethical implications of this technology. We need to develop guidelines and safeguards to ensure that AI agents are used responsibly and for the benefit of humanity.
It sounds like we need to find a balance between embracing the potential of this technology while also being mindful of the risks.
Absolutely. It's not about being afraid of AI, but about being thoughtful and proactive in shaping its development. We need to make sure it's aligned with our values and goals as a society.
And it's not just a technological challenge, it's also a social and ethical one.
Yeah.
And it's one that we all need to be part of.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits and risks of AI agents, but I'm curious, what are some specific applications beyond our personal computers that really excite you?
One area that has huge potential is healthcare. Imagine AI agents that can analyze medical data, assist with diagnoses, and even personalized treatment plans.
Wow.
This could revolutionize how we approach healthcare, making it more accessible, efficient, and effective.
Wow, that would be incredible. It would be like having a team of expert doctors and researchers working around the clock to keep us healthy.
Exactly. And another area with massive potential is education. Imagine AI agents that can tailor learning experiences to each student's individual needs and abilities. This could help students learn more effectively and reach their full potential.
That's such an important point. Not everyone learns the same way, and AI could help bridge that gap, providing personalized support and guidance to every student.
Absolutely. And it's not just about personalized learning. AI agents could also automate administrative tasks, freeing up teachers to focus on what they do best, inspiring and mentoring their students.
So it's not about replacing teachers, it's about empowering them to be even more effective.
Exactly. And beyond healthcare and education, there are countless other areas where AI agents could make a difference. Think about transportation, where they could optimize traffic flow and reduce congestion, or manufacturing, where they could monitor equipment and prevent costly breakdowns.
The possibilities are truly endless. It's like we're on the cusp of a new era where AI is seamlessly integrated into every aspect of our lives.
And it all starts with research, like the work being done at Windows Agent Arena. By pushing the boundaries of what's possible, they're laying the foundation for a future where AI can help us solve some of humanity's greatest challenges.
It's inspiring to think about what we can achieve when we combine human ingenuity with the power of AI. But I'm curious, what are some of the challenges that researchers are still grappling with? What are the biggest hurdles to overcome?
One of the biggest challenges is ensuring that these agents are robust and reliable. We need to make sure they can handle unexpected situations, adapt to changing environments, and recover from errors gracefully.
So it's not just about getting them to perform specific tasks, it's about making sure they can think on their feet and deal with the complexities of the real world.
Exactly. And another challenge is making sure these agents are secure and trustworthy. We need to prevent them from being hacked or manipulated, and we need to ensure they are used ethically and responsibly.
That's a crucial point. We need to build trust and transparency into these systems from the ground up.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have interdisciplinary collaborations between computer scientists, ethicists, social scientists, and policymakers. We need to approach this technology from multiple perspectives to ensure that it benefits society as a whole.
It sounds like there's a lot of work to be done, but also a lot of potential for positive impact. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something a little more concrete. Earlier, we were talking about how these agents learn and adapt. Can you dive a little deeper into that? How do they actually acquire new skills and improve their performance?
It's a fascinating process. That involves a combination of different machine learning techniques. One approach is supervised learning, where the agent is trained on a data set of labeled examples.
Okay.
For instance, it might be shown a series of screenshots and told which actions to take in each situation.
So it's like giving them a digital textbook and having them study for a test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as they process more and more examples, they start to learn the patterns and rules that govern the digital world.
But can they learn beyond those specific examples? Can they generalize and apply their knowledge to new situations?
That's where reinforcement learning comes in. In this approach, the agent is placed in a simulated environment and allowed to experiment with different actions.
Okay.
It receives rewards for successful actions and penalties for mistakes. And over time, it learns to optimize its behavior to maximize its rewards.
So it's like giving them a virtual playground and letting them learn through trial and error.
Exactly. And this approach is particularly effective for tasks that are difficult to program explicitly, such as navigating complex interfaces or interacting with dynamic environments.
It sounds like a powerful combination. Supervised learning provides a foundation of knowledge, and reinforcement learning allows them to refine and adapt that knowledge based on real-world experience.
Precisely. And by combining these techniques, researchers are pushing the boundaries of what AI agents can achieve.
It's incredible to think about the potential here. We're talking about AI that can learn, adapt, and potentially even reason on its own.
It's a truly exciting time to be working in this field, and I believe we're only scratching the surface of what's possible.
So we've explored the amazing capabilities of these AI agents, the challenges they still face, and the ethical considerations we need to be mindful of. But I'm curious, what about the broader implications for society? How do you think this technology will impact our lives in the years to come?
Well, I believe AI agents have the potential to transform nearly every aspect of our lives.
Wow.
They can automate tedious tasks,
Yeah.
personalize our digital experiences, and even help us solve some of the world's most pressing problems.
It sounds like we're talking about a future where technology is no longer a source of frustration and distraction, but a true partner in helping us achieve our goals and live more fulfilling lives.
That's the vision, and research like Windows Agent Arena is paving the way for that vision to become a reality.
It's inspiring to see how far we've come, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. But before we get too carried away with the possibilities, let's bring things back down to earth for a moment. We've been talking about all this amazing potential, but let's face it, sometimes even the simplest tech can be a pain. Like, how many times have you wrestled with a printer? Or spent an hour trying to figure out why your Wi-Fi isn't working?
Oh yeah, all the time.
It makes you wonder, even if we can create these super smart AI agents, will they actually be able to handle the messy reality of our tech lives?
It's a great point, and it highlights a crucial area of research. Making these agents more robust and adaptable, they need to be able to handle unexpected situations, recover from errors, and basically think on their feet.
So it's not enough for them to just follow instructions. They
No.
need to have a certain level of common sense and problem-solving ability.
Exactly.
Kind of like a tech-savvy friend who can always figure things out.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Researchers are exploring ways to give these agents a deeper understanding of the world, not just by feeding them data, but by teaching them to reason and make inferences like humans do.
So it's not just about memorizing facts, it's about understanding how things work and being able to apply that knowledge to new situations.
Precisely. And that kind of reasoning ability is essential if we want these agents to be truly helpful in our everyday lives.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here, but let's zoom out even further. We've talked about AI agents on our personal computers, and you've hinted at applications in healthcare and education, but where else could this technology go? What are some of the more mind-blowing possibilities?
Well, imagine a world where AI agents aren't just confined to our devices, but are actually embedded in the environment around us. Think smart cities that optimize traffic flow, buildings that adjust lighting and temperature based on occupancy, even factories that run autonomously.
Wow, that's some next-level stuff. It's like the Internet of Things, but on steroids, with AI agents as the brains of the operation.
Exactly. And as we gather more data and develop more powerful AI models, these networks of interconnected agents could become incredibly efficient at solving complex problems that we can't even imagine today.
It's both exciting and a little intimidating to think about how much potential this technology has. But like we discussed earlier, it's crucial that we approach it thoughtfully and responsibly. What steps can we take to ensure that these powerful AI agents are used for good?
Well, one crucial aspect is transparency. We need to understand how these agents are making decisions, what data they're using, and what their goals are. This will help us identify potential biases and prevent unintended consequences.
So it's kind of like shining a light on the inner workings of these AI systems so we can make sure they're operating ethically and in alignment with our values?
Exactly. And another important step is to establish clear guidelines and regulations for the development and deployment of AI agents. This will help ensure that they are used safely and responsibly.
It's like establishing traffic laws for the digital world, making sure everyone is playing by the rules, and that there are safeguards in place to prevent accidents.
Precisely. And ultimately, it's about fostering a culture of responsible innovation, where developers, policymakers, and the public are all engaged in a dialogue about the ethical implications of AI and working together to shape its future.
Well said. It sounds like we have a lot of work to do, but also an incredible opportunity to create a future where AI empowers us to live better, healthier, and more fulfilling lives.
Absolutely. And research like Windows Agent Arena is giving us a glimpse of what that future might look like.
It's been an amazing journey exploring this topic with you, and I feel like I've learned so much. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. We've talked about all the incredible things AI agents might be able to do in the future, but what about right now? What can our listeners do today to prepare for this AI-powered world?
That's a great question. And I think the most important thing is to stay informed and engaged. Learn about the different types of AI, the ethical considerations, and the potential impact on your industry and your life.
It's about being proactive and taking ownership of our AI future.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and contribute to the conversation. The future of AI is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of AI agents. A huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us today.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember to check out the links in our show notes if you want to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep imagining the possibilities.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to try a new model called Depth Pro, which can figure out how far away things are in a photo without needing any extra information about the camera. It's like having a super smart app that can tell the depth of everything in an image with great detail and accuracy. As you can see here, we can see the model detail in Hugging Face, and in the Hugging Face page, you can also go to the code repository to see their GitHub page. There are some additional descriptions and how to get started. Now let's go to check the code. Before we start, I would suggest you, if you can activate the GPU runtime option in Colab, please choose it. There are some free tier usage allowance to each user. After using it for some time, it may be blocked, but if you can choose it, or if you are a pro user, please choose it because it will let the model provide faster results. Now, to prepare the model to run in Colab, you can check both Hugging Face page and GitHub page. First thing we need to do is to clone the code of the GitHub page to Colab environment. Then we move the directory to the code directory and we install the package, download the model, and confirm the installation. Then we set up the Depth Pro path to make sure our code can easily access the model files when we import from the Depth Pro. Then we check the availability of GPU, and if you want, you can also do this part of the code to do additional check on the number of GPUs available. And here we're importing image for handle the image in later stage, and import this package of Depth Pro. And of course, these are some checks to make sure that the GPU is available. There may be some redundancy in my code, but I would suggest you, before you move to some critical points, always check if the device is available. Next, we load the Depth Pro model and a transformation function that will help us prepare our images for depth prediction. We'll move the model to GPU if it's available and set it to evaluation mode since we are only making predictions. Then we can also print out the status of the GPU if we want. Now in the implementation stage, you first need to prepare all the dependencies that's needed. Then we create this function to display original and predicted image side by side. And the next code block is going to process and display each uploaded image. And the most important part is in the middle. We just load image, move to GPU, run inference on GPU, and retrieve the depth map back to CPU for visualization. And eventually, we just run this function to upload, process, and display results. As you can see here, each time when you upload the image, the model is going to process the image and provide you with a predicted depth on the right. I'm choosing some images I find online. So the first one is a forest and mountain picture. And you can see this model can do quite a good job to let you know the depth, which you can interpret as the distance of the object from your standing point. But in some other cases, like this one, this is an image about the field. The part that you see here is not the same distance to your standing point from each point of the view, but the model can only detect some part of it. So I guess there are also some limitations, right? Because you cannot see like every individual object is precisely analyzed. Then we see this mountain view. Mountain view, I can tell you that this mountain is like in the middle of the depth of the picture. Then you can see there are further mountains in the background, and there are some green parts very close to us. Okay, the model does some job to identify some objects close to us, but some other parts are very fuzzy. Then we see this picture of the cathedral. Yeah, it's doing a better job because you can see there are many people identified which are close to us, and we have also a cathedral in the middle, then the sky in the far end. Then we can also see here this one is in the inside of the building, And we can see there is a depth, which means that all the viewpoints is leading to one door. You can see here after processing, we can see this is the direction where everybody is going, and you can also see the people here. So it's doing good job. And then this one is about a football stadium, and you can see it identified some of the poles very close to us, and the stadium is like in the middle. It can also identify the edges, but for the lower side, it's not very easily detectable. So the model does not put dark color here. And you see this one is inside of the football pitch. About this picture, we can see the light, and we can see there are some sitting places in the stadium and also the pitch. However, the model cannot predict the depth correctly because you see it's all fuzzy. Then this is another picture. This picture actually is showing the cathedral in a very close distance, but the model just gets a very fuzzy prediction. I mean, it's not like the previous one, like this one. From some distance from the cathedral or inside of the building, we can see quite clear the main object and the main object's distance. But these two, about the inside of the football pitch and the close image, they are not doing so well. Then we take a look at this picture. It's a street view of New York, and you can see this one. The prediction is quite precise because you see the most close objects like this car and the one person riding the bike are clearly identified, and we can also see the further we go down the street, the distance is going to increase. So in general, this model works fine. And if you are interested in this field or you are interested in playing with model, you can try it using this code. So there are many open source or free models on Hugging Face. I'm going to try them and also share with you in later videos. But before I end this video, one thing I want to mention to you is that usually for all the free model, there is a very clear description to tell you how to use the model, how to try it, and please also pay attention to the license type of each model because some of them don't have the limit of usage, but the others may have. I do encourage you to check the different resources in Hugging Face or in other sources and try these models so you can better understand what the model does and if you can incorporate this model to your workflow or to your product. I wish you like this video. If you like it, please give it a like. If you like my channel, please subscribe. See you next time. Bye bye.
All right, let's dive into generative AI and how it's really changing businesses. We're going beyond the hype today.
Yes, definitely beyond the hype.
And looking at some hard data.
For sure.
We're going straight to the source with the 2024 report, Navigating GenAI's Early Years.
It's a good one.
It's from AI at Wharton and GBK Collective. Think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet for understanding the real trends, the opportunities, and also the challenges that companies are facing as they adopt this tech.
Right, because it's not just about the shiny new toy anymore, is it? We're past that initial wow phase with GenAI. Businesses are actually using it now, figuring out the ROI, the practical application. It's getting real.
That's a good point. It's not all theoretical anymore. And the report has some great insights from actual business leaders who are using GenAI right now.
Oh, absolutely.
One tech telecom executive even called it a world changer for their productivity.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Yeah, it is. And that kind of enthusiasm mixed with real-world use cases is what makes this so exciting, I think.
Definitely. And the impact is spreading. Remember last year how some departments were slower to adopt Gen AI, like marketing, operations, and HR?
Yeah, they seem to be lagging behind a bit.
Well, this year, Gen AI usage has practically doubled across all business functions. It's everywhere now.
So it's become truly ubiquitous.
Exactly.
I was really interested in what that retail leader said about Gen AI changing how they create content and plan their strategy. I marked that one in the report.
That's a good one.
And then in HR, people are using it for everything: data analysis, writing memos, even finding potential candidates. It really shows you the range of what Gen AI can do. And this huge increase in adoption is matched by a pretty stunning increase in investment, too. Spending on Gen AI has gone up by 130% since last year.
Wow.
The average company is spending $10.3 million on it now. So you can see they're serious about this.
That's a big number.
Yeah. It's not just about throwing money at it, though. Companies are being strategic. They're expanding their teams, creating those chief AI officer roles.
Right, which 46% of companies now have. That's incredible growth.
Yeah. Nearly half of companies already have a CAO. And most companies are choosing to keep their Gen AI strategy in-house rather than outsourcing it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It shows real commitment to building up expertise internally.
Especially with those concerns about data privacy and security that are becoming more and more important.
For sure. Companies want to be in control of their data and how Gen AI is being used with it. They're realizing it's not just about adopting the technology, it's about doing it in a responsible way.
And I think that shift is reflected in how people's perceptions of Gen AI are changing. Remember all the initial amazement, the curiosity?
It was all so new.
Well, now companies are saying they feel pleased and excited about Gen AI.
So more mature outlook.
Right. And it's because they have more experience with it. The more they use it, the more positive they become about it, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's encouraging. And even the worries about job displacement are starting to ease up. The report actually shows a real shift towards leaders believing that Gen AI will make jobs better instead of getting rid of them.
That's really interesting.
It is. One automotive leader said it best, it's about augmentation, not replacement.
I like that.
I do too. It really gets at the potential for Gen AI to empower people.
For sure. Make them better at what they do.
Rather than making them obsolete, right?
Exactly.
So we're seeing most leaders agree that Gen AI is having a positive impact, but it hasn't quite reached highly impactful status in most areas, at least not yet.
True, except for one big exception, IT. Over half of IT leaders say Gen AI is already having a huge impact for them.
58% to be exact.
58%, yep. Which makes sense given what they do.
It does.
But here's where things get really fascinating. The report shows this mismatch between where companies are using Gen AI the most and where it actually performs the best.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It is. Right, this is where you might want to take notes, because this could change how you think about using Gen AI. Right now, the top uses are things like writing and editing documents, doing data analysis and summarizing meetings. But those aren't actually where Gen AI shines the most.
So it's being used for more basic tasks, but it excels at more complex ones.
Yeah, and it gets even more interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, Gen AI actually gets the highest performance scores for things like data analysis, coming up with new ideas, generating legal contracts, spotting fraud, and writing emails.
Wow, that's kind of surprising, isn't it? You'd think things like writing would be its strong suit.
You would. But it turns out it's actually much better at these other tasks.
So companies might be missing out on some big opportunities by focusing on the more basic applications of Gen AI.
Exactly. It's about understanding where this technology truly excels and then being strategic about how you apply it.
Don't just jump on the bandwagon without thinking it through.
Right. Have a plan.
So if those top uses aren't the main drivers, what is motivating companies to adopt Gen AI, and what's holding them back?
The top reasons have stayed pretty consistent year over year. Boosting productivity, optimizing operations, and making the customer experience better.
Those are all good things.
They are. But the perceived importance of those drivers has actually gone down a little bit compared to last year.
So businesses are getting a little more realistic about what Gen AI can actually do for them?
Exactly. They're moving past the hype.
Getting down to brass tacks.
And looking at it in a more practical way. Now, as for the barriers, the biggest concerns are still customer data privacy, security risks, and how complex it is to implement.
But it does seem like companies are starting to get more comfortable with the potential risks and how to mitigate them.
Yeah, I think so.
But managing that risk requires being really smart about which vendor you choose, especially with the competitive landscape changing so rapidly.
Absolutely.
We were just talking about how Microsoft seems to be gaining ground on Google.
It's true. They're making moves.
And don't forget about OpenAI and AWS.
Oh, right. They can't be ignored.
That shift alone makes the vendor landscape a lot more dynamic than anyone expected.
For sure. A lot more to consider now.
It makes you wonder if the whole concept of a best vendor will become irrelevant.
That's an interesting thought.
What if we start seeing providers specialize in niche areas, catering to specific industry needs?
I can see that happening.
Choosing the right vendor might become less about overall market dominance and more about finding the perfect fit for your particular use case.
Yeah, like a bespoke solution.
Exactly.
Instead of a one-size-fits-all.
Right. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Definitely. The landscape is changing fast.
Speaking of the technology itself, let's break down some of the key players.
Sure.
For anyone who needs a quick refresher, we're talking about large language models, or LLMs.
Right, the foundation of a lot of GenAI applications.
These are the complex algorithms that power many of the GenAI applications we use every day.
Exactly.
And when it comes to LLMs, OpenAI's GPT is still the dominant force.
It's still the big one.
79% of decision makers are either using it or planning to use it.
Yeah, it's hard to beat.
But it's not the only game in town anymore.
Definitely not.
The report shows that companies are becoming increasingly familiar with a broader range of LLMs.
They're exploring their options.
They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Smart move.
And of course, we can't forget about the chatbots.
Oh yeah, the chatbots.
They've become so ubiquitous.
It seems like there's a new one every day.
ChatGPT and Copilot are the go-to choices for many businesses with commercial subscriptions.
Right, the big names?
While individual users seem to gravitate towards Claude and Perplexity,
Yeah, I've heard good things about those.
it feels like every day there's a new chatbot designed to solve a specific need.
That's amazing.
But with all this talk about technology and trends, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture.
It's true.
What does this all mean for the listener?
Right, what's the takeaway?
What are the key takeaways they should be thinking about?
Well, the first thing to understand is that generative AI is not a passing fad.
This is here to stay.
It's rapidly being integrated into the very fabric of businesses of all sizes.
It's incredible how quickly things are changing. Just a year ago, GenAI felt more like a novelty.
It did, didn't it?
Now it's becoming a core part of how businesses operate.
It's essential.
And that brings us to a crucial point.
Okay, what's that?
The next few years will be critical for businesses to figure out the most effective ways to leverage GenAI
They need a plan.
while simultaneously mitigating the risks.
Right, that's a balancing act.
We need to move beyond the experimentation phase and into strategic implementation,
Get serious about it.
especially when it comes to those concerns around data privacy and security.
Yeah, those are big ones.
The report really highlighted those as major considerations for businesses.
And rightfully so.
Absolutely.
Businesses need to be proactive about addressing these challenges head on.
Not bury their heads in the sand.
It's about establishing clear guidelines for data usage, implementing robust security measures, and ensuring that the development and deployment of GenAI is done responsibly and ethically.
So practically speaking, what can businesses do to ensure responsible adoption? What should they be focusing on?
Well, one key area is education.
Educating their employees.
Yes, it's crucial for decision makers and employees alike to understand the capabilities and limitations of GenAI.
Don't overpromise.
We need to move beyond the hype and develop a realistic understanding of what this technology can and cannot do.
No magic bullets.
Right.
It's like anything else in business.
Exactly.
You can't just throw a new tool at a problem without proper training and expect it to work miracles.
You need to know how to use it.
Investing in training and upskilling programs will be essential.
Absolutely. Make sure your people are ready.
But it's not just about technical skills.
Oh, good point.
We also need to cultivate critical thinking and problem-solving abilities so that employees can effectively work alongside these powerful AI systems.
Right. They need to be able to think for themselves.
It's not about being replaced by AI. It's about working with it.
Exactly.
So it's a two-pronged approach.
Okay. I like that.
Develop the technical expertise to use the tools and the critical thinking skills to apply them strategically.
Makes sense.
And this brings us to another critical consideration:
All right. What's that?
the impact on the workforce.
Ah, yes, the big question.
A lot of people are naturally concerned about the potential for job displacement.
It's understandable.
Every time there's a major technological shift, there are questions about how it will affect jobs.
It's a natural reaction.
But the report suggests we might be focusing on the wrong question.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean? Instead of asking, will AI replace jobs?
Right.
Maybe we should be asking,
Yeah.
how can we use AI to make our workforce better?
I like that.
Remember how we talked about the change in how people see Gen AI?
Yeah, definitely.
More and more leaders are starting to see it as a way to improve jobs, not get rid of them.
So it's about augmentation, not replacement.
Exactly.
Like having a super efficient assistant,
Yeah.
freeing you up to focus on the more strategic stuff.
Right. Think about that retail leader we talked about.
The one who's using Gen AI for content?
Yeah, they're not firing their marketing team. They're giving them the tools to get even better results.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
So maybe we shouldn't be afraid of Gen AI.
I don't think so.
Maybe we should be looking at how it can help us be more productive and creative.
I think that's the right way to look at it.
But there's a challenge here, isn't there?
There is?
Businesses need to be adaptable.
They do.
Because this technology is changing so fast.
It's evolving at an incredible pace.
To really thrive in this new world of Gen AI, companies need to be willing to learn constantly.
Absolutely.
And adjust their strategies quickly.
And prioritize innovation.
It feels like we're on the edge of a huge shift in technology.
It does, doesn't it?
The businesses that can ride this wave and adapt will be the ones that succeed.
I think you're right.
It's a time of huge opportunity.
It is.
But also a lot of disruption.
For sure.
The companies that can embrace change, learn quickly, and keep innovating will be the ones that write the next chapter of business. But it's not just about businesses adapting, is it?
No, it's not.
Individuals need to be ready for this shift too.
They absolutely do.
This brings up a really important point.
Okay.
How will Gen AI change individual careers?
Right. What skills will people need to succeed in the future?
It's almost like we need another deep dive just to unpack that.
We might.
But we're running out of time for today.
Sure.
Can you give us a quick preview of what those implications might be?
Well, one thing's for sure. The skills that will be most valuable in the future are those uniquely human skills.
Like what?
Things like critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence,
Oh, okay.
and complex problem solving. Those are the skills AI still can't really replicate.
So even though Gen AI can automate some tasks, it can't replace human ingenuity and those essential human qualities?
Exactly. And that's where lifelong learning becomes so important.
Right, because things are changing so fast.
In a world where technology is always evolving, people who keep learning and developing new skills will have a big advantage.
They'll be the ones who can adapt to new tools and technologies.
And find new opportunities.
Like a new renaissance.
Oh, like that.
The most successful people will be those who combine technical skills with those essential human qualities.
It's about finding that balance.
And this highlights the potential that exists when human and artificial intelligence come together.
Yeah.
What if, instead of seeing AI as a threat,
Right.
we see it as a chance to unlock new levels of human potential?
I love that idea.
Remember when we talked about how Gen AI is actually best at things like generating ideas and solving problems?
I do.
What if these tools could actually make us even more creative and innovative?
It's an amazing possibility, isn't it?
Imagine a world where Gen AI is like a partner,
Yeah.
helping us come up with new ideas.
And solve tough problems.
Yeah. This isn't just about businesses adapting. It's about humans and AI working together to do incredible things.
That's the key takeaway.
The future of work isn't about us versus the machines,
It's about finding that harmony.
where we each use our strengths to achieve more than we ever could alone.
I think that's a great way to put it.
So, to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Gen AI, we want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
What if this isn't just a technological revolution? What if it's a human revolution?
I like that.
What if Gen AI isn't just changing how we work?
Yeah.
What if it's changing how we think, how we create, how we solve problems?
That's a great question to consider.
As you continue exploring the world of Gen AI, approach it with curiosity, a willingness to experiment, and an open mind.
Be open to the possibilities.
Because the future is being written right now, and it's up to all of us to shape it in a way that benefits everyone.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Until next time.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel again. Today I'm going to show you a very simple project about the Hugging Face model test. Now Hugging Face is a very popular platform where it hosts many models. As you can see here from the Google search page, we can see now there are already more than 1 million different models where we can utilize. And if we go inside, for example, we check one of the model, we can see the model card, show you all the descriptions of this model and also the different files regarding this model. And when you want to use this model, you just click use this model, and you're going to see either from the transformer library or from the other channels like LLM. However, different models we may need different packages or different channels to utilize or deploy. And you can also see we have different type of the models like text generation, text classification, text to image. So basically each model has a very specific task. It's not like what we know about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is utilizing like the GPT-4o model to do all types of tasks together. But in Hugging Face, you're going to see different small, large models where it can cater different use cases. If we go to the model Now you can see there are so many different types of the model, like multimodal, computer vision, natural language processing, audio, tabular, reinforcement learning, other. Okay. I do encourage you to try them out because some of these models are very interesting to play with and could further enhance your transformer utilization skill or the skills to complete different tasks, like the task categories we see on the left hand side. Yeah, so it's very convenient to utilize Hugging Face to try out different models. Now, let's check the code to test some of the models. Before we start, we need to install different dependencies that's necessary for our test. Then the first thing that we need to do is to import different models. And in here, the first task, we're going to do text generation. I chose a model which is only 231 megabytes. It's called T5. As you can see here, the model does not give us a very satisfying result. It's actually just take my input text and give me the exact same output. The second model I'm going to use is called DistillBERT. I'm going to use it for sentiment analysis. As you can see, this model analyzed the text of the previous step and it gets the sentiment as negative. If we run this again, it could be positive. So this model is not very stable, but if you run this model, you can see here there are very clear description, or we can say suggestion. You should probably train this model on a downstream task to be able to use it for prediction and inference. This is very important. So this is a very basic model that you need to further fine-tune for your specific task. If you use it like this, you will not, or most likely, you are not going to get a very satisfactory result. And then here you can see we are going back to the Q&A model of BERT. But here I only have a very simple logic to see if the previous sentiment is negative or positive. Then I'm going to ask different questions to the model. But here, this is only for demonstration purpose. You can easily identify that the question is not including the context. The pipeline is not very robust because you get the sentiment from the previous answer, but you are not including all the context of the previous answers. This one is just to let you know that you can add this logic in your pipeline, but to make sure that you get the answer you want, you need to consider the context. Without context, this model will do a freestyle answer. As you can see here, the question is what causes the conflict in negative story? What negative story? What negative response? You need to include all the context. Without that, you're going to get a very random result. And this being said, even if you include all the context, using a very simple model, you may still get a very partial or inaccurate result. The next one is text summarizer of BART, summarize the Q&A, and you can see to summarize the previous answer, it gave the result. What will you do for a living? This is totally random. It does not give us a very interesting result. Then the next one, we are going to the translation task. We are asking the model to translate the summary to French. It does give some French output. If you don't speak this language, you may need to double check if the translation is accurate, or you may use other translation tools to double check. There are also some different models to do the translation task that you can try in Hugging Face. The last one, we use a Diablo GPT. It will respond to translated summary. So as we can see here, its response is almost the same as the input string of the previous question. So now we finish a very simple version. In this version, you can see we have different models handling the different stage of the pipeline. But there are several issues that we need to understand. First of all, the limitation of the models. If they are small, they may not give a very robust answer. And in your pipeline, if you do not decipher or include the previous answer correctly or organize the information string effectively, the answers are not very useful. Now let's see another version. In this version, I actually simplified the pipeline. Let's just focus on several things like Q&A, like summarization, and also translation. So the first thing I'm going to use is GPT-2. I'm using this model to generate the text. My question is the future of artificial intelligence. You can see the future of artificial intelligence is in question, particularly with robots on an increasing large scale. Well, it makes some sense, right? This answer is much better than the previous version, like we use other models. And there are no scientific approaches to improving AI. Grammatically, there are some errors here, right? And no real evidence of how robots can improve that. Well, makes sense, right? And it also says IBM's Watson is a sophisticated computer that uses. Okay, we already reached the maximum text window. Okay, so the answer finishes here. Then we use T5 small model to summarize. It says the future of artificial intelligence is in question. Okay, and yeah, it gets some of the words from the previous answer. Summarization is not perfect, but it can be more useful than the previous version. Then we do the question answering. Okay, I ask, what is the text about? It's about the future of artificial intelligence. Okay. Then we use this model to translate the text to French. You can see here. Okay, it translated the text. And also we use this model to do the sentiment analysis of it. It says positive. However, I think the summarized text is neutral sentiment, right? However, the model predicted to be positive, which means that the results could not be very accurate. So as you can see, the two different versions, we use very simple models. We can get different results utilizing different models. If you use larger, more sophisticated models, you can get better results. And I'm using these models because they are CPU friendly. So in Colab, if I do not have the computer resource, I can utilize them to do some tests. This is point number one, why I use small models. Second, you can design a pipeline. You can design a pipeline utilizing different models for a specific task. For example, like the natural language processing, if you use a simple model like transformer model, BERT model, if you fine tune it to do text classification, some very specific task, the result may not be worse than a very advanced frontier model. Today I have not yet shown you that, but in the future I'm going to do some videos to check the different models as long as it is well trained and can fit into CPU, which means that the inference speed is not so slow and I can use it in Colab. The last thing I want to share with you is that the design of the pipeline, consideration of the information flow are very important. The second version, of course, is better than the previous version for several reasons, like I choose a different model, and to get a useful result, maybe I do not need a very sophisticated pipeline. I should start with a simpler pipeline. Like the previous one, I use some logic and so on, but in the design, in the writing of the code, I miss some points. So eventually it cannot be a prototype for me to develop to the next stage. The second version can be better to improve because the pipeline is simpler and I can identify the problems easily. And you can see the basic code structure is much simpler, right? So we are using one input to get an output, then the output will be the input of next stage. Make it streamlined so you can see this whole process. I wish you like this video. This is just the first step that I'm going to interact and design different workflow with Hugging Face models. I wish you like it. If you like my video, feel free to share it, give it a like, leave a comment if you have any suggestion or any doubts. Please subscribe if you like my channel, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Okay, wouldn't it be amazing to just ask the internet any question and just get like a perfect answer right away? No scrolling through Google, no reading long articles, just boom, the knowledge you need. Well, guess what? We're getting closer than ever. ChatGPT just got a huge upgrade. That's what this deep dive is all about. We're going to break down exactly what's new with it, how it works, and like what it means for all of us. Think of it like your cheat sheet to this whole thing. We're going straight from OpenAI's announcement blog post here. And we really want to help you understand not just the technical stuff, but like the bigger picture of how this could change how we learn and use information.
I think the really fascinating part is that we're not just talking about another search engine. It's like a whole different way of using the entire internet.
Okay, let's break it down. So ChatGPT can now access and process information from the whole web. It doesn't just give you like pre-programmed answers anymore. It can pull up facts, figures, and even give you links to like where it got the info from.
Exactly. It's making research so much easier. Like imagine trying to learn about something really complex. Before you'd be jumping back and forth between ChatGPT and your search engine, putting the pieces together yourself. Now it does all that for you. like having a super-powered research assistant built right in.
And this is what I think is really cool. You don't have to talk like a search engine anymore. Like typing in the perfect keywords. Now you can just talk to it normally, like you're asking a friend. And it remembers what you asked before. So you can go back and forth and refine your search. Can you explain how that works?
Well, think about how normal search engines work. They just match keywords. So you type in best hiking trails near me, and it tries to find websites with those exact words. ChatGPT goes deeper. It actually tries to understand what you mean.
So instead of just giving me every website with hiking trails, it might be like, okay, what kind of hiking do you like? Are you looking for mountain views or like more forest? How long of a hike are you thinking?
Exactly. It's having a conversation to figure out what you want. And that's not all. OpenAI has partnered with big names in news, like Vox Media and Le Monde. So you can get up-to-date info on things like the weather stocks and breaking news, all within ChatGPT.
Yeah, I saw that. It seems like they're trying to make sure this new search is accurate and trustworthy, not just grabbing stuff from anywhere on the web. They're going to reputable sources.
Yeah, that's key. They're really emphasizing that.
Yeah.
Pam Wasserstein, the president of Vox Media, said, "This will better highlight and attribute information from trustworthy news sources, benefiting audiences while expanding the reach of publishers." So it's good for everyone.
And honestly, the source linking thing is big for me. You know how many times you read something online and you're like, wait, where did they get that? Now you can see exactly what articles or websites ChatGPT is using.
It's all about being transparent and giving users the power to check things themselves. Louis Dreyfus, the CEO of Le Monde, said it well. He thinks AI search is going to be the main way people get information in the future. But it's really important to safeguard journalism's core values and integrity. Being able to verify sources is a big part of that.
Okay, this all sounds amazing, but I gotta admit, I'm a little lost on the how it works part. This fine-tuned GPT-4 and synthetic data, it's a bit over my head. Can you explain it to me like I'm 5?
Okay, so imagine ChatGPT has this huge library. It's got all these real web pages, articles, and stuff. But OpenAI made a special section filled with what they call synthetic information. It's basically carefully written summaries, explanations, and examples that help ChatGPT understand complicated ideas.
So they kind of gave ChatGPT extra knowledge to help it handle those tougher, more detailed questions.
Exactly. By mixing that real-world data with this special synthetic data, they made a system that can understand things and make connections. That it couldn't do with just the web data alone.
That makes a lot more sense. Like ChatGPT is a student who's not just memorizing facts, but actually trying to understand the material deeply.
That's a great way to put it. It's like they've given it the ability to not just read the textbook, but actually understand the concepts and use them.
And they're not even done yet. The announcement said they're looking for feedback, especially from people in the news industry. They even gave an email address for publishers to share their thoughts. I'm really interested to see what improvements they make based on that feedback.
It's exciting to think about. One thing they mentioned is making the search even more focused. So like imagine doing all your shopping or planning a whole trip just within ChatGPT. No more jumping between different websites and apps. It would make everything so much smoother.
Yeah. I hate having like a million tabs open when I'm booking a flight or finding a good deal.
Exactly. It would be a game changer.
Anything else they hinted at?
Well, they briefly mentioned their O1 series AI models. These sound really interesting. They're designed for even deeper research, not just finding information, but actually analyzing it and putting it together in new ways. It's almost like building an AI that can not only find the answers, but come up with new insights.
Well, hold on. So instead of just a list of facts, it could actually draw conclusions or make predictions.
That's the idea, and it's still early. But it has the potential to totally change fields like scientific research or market analysis. Imagine an AI that can go through mountains of data and find hidden patterns or trends that humans might miss.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is way bigger than just a new search engine. It's like the next step in how we learn things. It's almost like we're moving from a searching mindset to a knowing mindset. Instead of having to hunt down information, it just comes to us.
Yeah, it's like having all the knowledge in the world at your fingertips, instantly accessible, and tailored to exactly what you need.
Which is amazing. But it also makes me wonder, if we're getting all these perfect answers right away, are we going to lose the ability to think for ourselves? Part of what makes learning so rewarding is that process of discovery, sifting through different sources, weighing the evidence, forming our own conclusions. Are we going to bypass all of that now?
That's a really good point. It's important to remember these AI tools are just that. Tools, they're powerful. but they don't replace human thinking.
So maybe instead of thinking of it as bypassing critical thinking, we should think of it as shifting it to a different level.
Exactly. We can focus on the higher level thinking skills, like analyzing, evaluating, applying the information. Instead of spending all our time gathering information, we can spend more time understanding and using it.
So it's like we're graduating from information gathering to knowledge creation.
I like that. It's subtle but important. And think about what it means for education. Imagine classrooms where students are no longer just memorizing facts, but having deep discussions, exploring complex issues, and working on projects that push the boundaries of knowledge.
And it's not just classrooms. Think about people who are always learning. Professionals who need to stay up to date. Anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed by how much information is out there. This could change everything for them.
Absolutely. It has the potential to make knowledge accessible to everyone in a way we've never seen before. It's both incredibly exciting and a little bit scary at the same time.
I know, right? It feels like we're on the edge of something huge. But we're still figuring out what it all means. One thing that stood out to me in the announcement was that they emphasized that any website or publisher can choose to appear in ChatGPT search. It sounds like they're trying to be as inclusive as possible while also giving publishers control over how their content is used.
That's crucial, especially as we navigate this new world. We need to make sure that publishers, especially those producing high-quality original content, are treated fairly, and that their work isn't just being taken and used without their permission.
It's about finding that balance between innovation and responsibility, making information accessible, but also protecting the people who create it.
Exactly. It's a complex issue, but one that we need to address head-on.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much more to explore. In the next part, we'll be taking a closer look at the ethical implications of this new technology and discussing what it all means for the future of knowledge and information. So stay tuned, and we'll see you back here soon.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, it's like they've given ChatGPT the ability to not just read the textbook, but to actually understand the concepts and apply them.
And they're not even done yet. In the announcement, they said they're actively looking for feedback, especially from people in the news industry. They even gave an email address for publishers to share their thoughts. I'm really curious what kind of improvements they come up with based on that feedback.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about. One thing they mentioned was making the search even more specialized. So imagine you could do all your shopping or plan a trip entirely within ChatGPT. No more jumping between websites and apps.
Yeah. I hate having a million tabs open when I'm trying to book a flight or find the best deal on something.
Exactly. It could streamline the whole process.
That would be a game changer. Is there anything else they hinted at?
Well, they briefly mentioned their O1 series AI models. And these sound really interesting. They're designed for even deeper research capabilities, going beyond just finding information to actually analyzing it and putting it together in new ways.
Whoa, hold on. So instead of just getting a list of facts, it could actually draw conclusions or make predictions based on what it finds.
That's the idea. It's still early days, but it has the potential to totally change fields like scientific research or market analysis. Imagine an AI that could sift through mountains of data and find hidden patterns or trends that humans might miss.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is way bigger than just a new search engine. It's like the next evolution of how we access knowledge. It's almost like we're moving from a searching mindset to a knowing mindset.
Right.
Instead of having to hunt down information, it just comes to us.
Yeah, it's like having the collective knowledge of humanity at your fingertips, instantly accessible and tailored to your specific needs.
Which is incredible, but it also makes me wonder, if we're getting all these instant, seemingly perfect answers, are we going to lose the ability to think critically and independently? Part of what makes learning so rewarding is that process of discovery, sifting through different sources, weighing the evidence, forming our own conclusions. Are we going to bypass all of that now?
That's a valid concern. It's important to remember that these AI tools are just that, tools. They're powerful, but they're not a replacement for human thought and judgment.
So maybe instead of thinking of it as bypassing critical thinking, we should think of it as shifting it to a different level.
Exactly. We can focus on the higher level thinking skills, analyzing, evaluating, applying the information we receive. Instead of spending all our time gathering information, we can spend more time understanding and using it.
So it's like we're graduating from information gathering to knowledge creation.
I like that. It's a subtle but important distinction. And think about the implications for education. Imagine classrooms where students are no longer just memorizing facts, but engaging in deep discussions, exploring complex issues, and collaborating on projects that push the boundaries of knowledge.
And it's not just about classrooms. Think about lifelong learners, professionals who need to stay up to date in their fields. Anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information out there, this could be a game changer for them.
Absolutely. It has the potential to democratize access to knowledge in a way we've never seen before. It's both incredibly exciting and a little daunting at the same time.
I know, right? It feels like we're on the cusp of something truly revolutionary, but we're still figuring out what it all means. One thing that stood out to me in the announcement was that they emphasized that any website or publisher can choose to appear in ChatGPT search. It sounds like they're trying to be as inclusive as possible while also giving publishers control over how their content is used.
That's crucial, especially as we navigate this new landscape. We need to make sure that publishers, especially those producing high-quality original content, are fairly compensated.
Yeah.
And that their work isn't just being scraped and repurposed without their consent.
It's about finding that balance between innovation and responsibility, making information accessible, but also protecting the rights of the people who create it. It's a lot to think about. The new features, the potential benefits, the challenges. We even touched on some of the ethical stuff with this ChatGPT search. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to really think about.
Yeah, let's get to the heart of it. We've explored the what and the why. But the most important question is, so what? What does this all mean for us in our everyday lives?
Exactly. So, dear listener, here's a question for you. If we can get these instant, perfect answers straight from the web, just by talking to an AI, how could that change the way we learn, work, and even think?
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Will we become more curious, or will we become too reliant on these tools? Will we lose that drive to dig deeper, to question what we're told?
It's like we're at a crossroads. The choices we make now about how we use this tech could change our relationship with knowledge and information forever.
And it's not just about us as individuals. We need to have these conversations as a society. How do we make sure these AI tools are used responsibly? How do we prevent bias and misinformation?
Big questions, no easy answers. But it all starts with awareness, with people like you, our listeners, engaging in these discussions.
So to everyone listening, keep exploring this topic. Share your thoughts. Ask questions. Let's figure this out together. After all, this is about the future of how we learn and understand the world around us.
And hey, maybe ChatGPT can even help you with that. It is a search engine after all. It could point you to some really interesting articles and perspectives on this very topic.
That's a great point. We can use these tools to learn more about the tools themselves. How meta is that?
I love it. Well, thanks so much for walking us through all of this. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
The pleasure was all mine. It's always exciting to be on the cutting edge of these advancements.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be diving deep into something that has the potential to, well, totally change how we think about apps. GitHub Spark.
Ooh, yeah.
It's, well, imagine if creating software was as easy as writing, a to-do list where anyone could just whip up a custom tool. For their specific needs, no coding needed.
Yeah, no coding experience at all.
At all.
Pretty wild, huh?
It is wild. We're talking about personalized learning aids or like a unique news aggregator, even like that silly game your 6-year-old made up.
Without a single line of code.
Without a single line of code.
It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. And we're going to unpack just how this is even possible using this announcement from GitHub next. So Spark's big idea is to make creating software as personal as setting up your computer, right?
Yeah.
You think about it.
Like your dev environment.
Yeah. You're spending time customizing your desktop, picking out the perfect font, arranging your icons just so. Why shouldn't we have that same power to personalize the apps we use every day?
Exactly. Why not?
So, but then what exactly are these micro apps that Spark makes so easy to create?
Yeah, they're like these mini hyper-focused tools really designed to just do one thing, but do it really, really well.
Okay.
I mean, think about like that really specific spreadsheet you made to track your fantasy football league. It's that kind of laser focus that Spark is all about.
Okay, so I'm picturing these like tiny bespoke solutions for very particular needs. But can you give us like some more concrete examples from what GitHub has actually shared?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So they showcased an allowance tracker for kids, that teaches them about financial literacy, an animated world of vehicles where kids can learn about different types of transportation, and get this, a custom Hacker News client that uses AI to summarize those crazy long comment threads.
Okay, wow. Those are some pretty diverse examples. I can already see how this could be like a game changer for anyone who's ever thought like, man, I wish there was an app that could just, but they didn't have the coding chops to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the key to all this Spark magic is it's super user-friendly toolchain. I mean, it's all about just removing the barriers and making the whole process, I don't know, almost playful.
Playful. That's an interesting way to describe software development.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So walk us through this toolchain.
Right.
What makes it so special?
So first up, you have interactive previews, and this is where the playful part comes in. So imagine typing out, what you want your app to do. And as you're typing, you're actually seeing it like come to life on the screen.
Well, hold on.
Like right in front of you.
So you can instantly see if your idea is working how you intended it?
Yes.
And like tweak things on the fly?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like having digital clay you can mold.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, and then there's revision variants, which is where things get even more interesting. Let's say you have, kind of a vague idea for an app. With Spark, you can actually get multiple AI-generated versions of that concept, each one with slightly different takes on your idea.
So it's like you have this brainstorming partner
Totally.
that just happens to be a super intelligent AI.
It really is.
That sounds incredibly helpful for, sparking creativity and exploring different possibilities.
Absolutely, it is. It really speaks to that iterative nature of Spark, It's not about getting everything perfect the first time around. It's about exploring and experimenting, refining your ideas until you hit that, that sweet spot.
I love that. And speaking of experimenting, what about mistakes? What if I make a change and then I realize like, oh, no, that was a terrible idea.
Well, that's where the automatic history comes in. Every single change you make is automatically saved. So you can freely experiment without fear, If you don't like something, just rewind.
So it's like a safety net for your creativity.
Yep.
And I bet that history log could be super valuable for learning.
Oh, for sure.
Like imagine being able to see how other creators, their ideas evolved, what they tried, what worked, what didn't.
Absolutely. Opens up this whole new level of transparency and learning from each other's creative processes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And finally, we have model selection, which may sound kind of technical, but it's actually really quite simple.
Okay, break it down for us. What's the deal with these models?
So you basically get to choose which AI brain powers your creation, Think of it like this. If you want a playful, creative app, GPT-4 might be your go-to. But if you need something that's really good at analyzing data, well, Spark will give you different options for that.
So it's all about matching the right tool for the job. I'm already starting to see how Spark could be useful for so many things.
Oh, yeah. And that's just the beginning. We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet.
Okay.
Because remember, creating an app isn't just about the front end, the part you see and interact with, There's this whole world behind the scenes that makes it work.
You're talking about all the technical stuff, like the code, the hosting, all that. That makes my head spin just thinking about it.
Exactly. But here's the beauty of Spark. It takes care of all that heavy lifting for you. It provides a managed runtime environment, which is just a fancy way of saying it handles all the plumbing and the wiring. So you can focus on being the architect of your app.
Okay, phew.
Yeah.
So I can just focus on what I want the app to do.
Yeah.
And Spark handles all the technical stuff.
Yes, precisely. No need to set up servers or configure databases or wrestle with deployment issues. Spark just makes it seamless, effortless.
Okay, that's really powerful. But what are the specific features of this runtime environment? What makes it so special?
Well, for starters, there's deployment-free hosting. This means that as soon as you create or update your app in Spark, it's instantly live. It's accessible on any device. No need to fiddle with servers or any of that. Spark handles it all.
Hold on. So I could make an app on my laptop and someone could immediately use it on their phone without me doing anything.
That's exactly right.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing.
It's all behind the scenes,
Yeah.
Spark's infrastructure is doing all the work.
That's wild. Okay, so what else does this magical runtime environment offer?
So there's also persistent data storage, which basically means that your app can remember things. Think of like a to-do list app. The tasks you enter are saved, and they're ready for you the next time you open the app.
Ah, so no more losing my progress, having to start from scratch every time.
Exactly.
But does this mean that I need to, like, learn about databases and all that complicated stuff?
No, not at all. Spark's runtime environment has this built-in data store that works seamlessly with your app. You simply tell your app to save the data. Spark takes care of the rest. Incredibly user-friendly.
Okay, that's music to my ears. What else is there?
Well, so this is where things get even more interesting.
Right?
Spark also has integrated model prompting, which lets you add some serious AI power
Yeah.
to your apps
AI power. Okay, now you have my attention.
without being a coding whiz.
What kind of AI features are we talking here?
Think summarization, content generation, translation, even image recognition. I mean, traditionally, adding this kind of stuff would require like writing complex code, understanding, all these intricate AI concepts.
Yeah, no, that's not really my forte.
No.
So how does Spark make that easier?
It uses something called prompts,
Okay.
which are basically just simple instructions you give to the AI. For example, you could say, summarize this article in 3 sentences, or generate a creative story based on these keywords.
And Spark's AI will just figure it out.
Exactly. They process the information, they deliver the results based on your prompts. It's like having a whole team of AI experts at your beck and call.
That's incredible. It really feels like Spark is opening up a whole new world
It really is.
for people who, they're not coders, but they have these amazing ideas for apps.
It is.
It's really.
Yeah. And we've only just begun to explore the potential of Spark. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, it is still in technical preview, so it's still evolving. It's getting even better as we speak.
So there's even more exciting stuff on the horizon.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What kind of hints did the source material give us?
So they highlighted 3 main areas that have the potential to be, well, pretty game-changing. First up is expanding collaboration. So imagine Spark becomes this platform, not just for creating apps, but sharing them, remixing them, even co-creating them.
It's like a social network
Yeah.
for app creators. I love that idea.
It'd be amazing to see what people come up with.
Yeah.
All these collaborative projects.
For sure.
And then there's deeper customization. The source material mentions something called X-ray mode, which sounds pretty cool.
Okay, so I'm picturing like this futuristic interface where you can like see the inner workings of your app. What exactly is X-ray mode?
Think of it as a way to like really get under the hood and fine-tune specific behaviors without needing to code. For those that want a little more control.
Okay, so it's like striking that balance between ease of use for beginners and then these more advanced options for, people that want to dig a little deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the third area of exploration is expanding capabilities.
Yeah.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because the possibilities are basically limitless.
Okay.
They mention things like integration with third-party services, file storage, even vector search.
Wow. That sounds like Spark is really on a trajectory to become this incredibly versatile and powerful platform.
Absolutely. The potential is vast.
Yeah.
I mean, it spans everything from personal productivity to education to entertainment and beyond.
It's amazing to think that we're like witnessing the birth of this tool that could change how we think about creating and using software.
Absolutely.
It's very cool.
It is.
So before we move on to answer your burning questions about Spark. Yes.
We want to leave you with a final thought, a question to ponder as you contemplate the possibilities of this groundbreaking tool.
Imagine a world where anyone, regardless of their skill level, could create an app. What kind of impact could that have on our society, our culture, our daily lives?
That's a really profound question. We'll give you all a moment to reflect on that while we take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be diving into your insightful questions about GitHub Spark. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but my mind is kind of buzzing with possibilities after that deep dive into Spark's features. It feels like we've only scratched the surface.
Oh, we have. You're right to be excited. But before we get too carried away with all the amazing things Spark can do, let's take a step back and address a question that might be lingering in your minds.
Okay.
How does Spark actually turn your ideas into working code?
That's a great point. We've talked about describing what you want your app to do, in like plain English. But how does that translate into, the ones and zeros that computers understand? It sounds like magic.
Yeah, it might feel like magic, but it's actually the result of some, incredibly clever engineering and powerful AI. Remember how we talked about model selection?
Yeah.
Well, those AI models, They're the secret sauce behind Spark's code-generating abilities.
So when I tell Spark I want an app that helps me plan my weekly meals, an AI model just like figures out how to turn that into lines of code.
Exactly. Those models have been trained on like mountains of code and data, allowing them to understand your intent and then generate that code to, to bring your vision to life.
That's incredible. But I imagine there's still a level of like refinement involved. What if the AI doesn't quite get it perfectly on the first try?
Well, that's where those interactive previews and revision variants we talked about, they come in. Remember, Spark is all about that iteration and collaboration, even with the AI. You can see the result of your instructions in real time, and if something isn't quite right, you can refine your description or choose from the AI suggestions.
So it's like a back and forth process, like a conversation between the user and the AI until you get that,
That desired outcome, I love that. It's like having a superpowered coding buddy that's helping you refine your ideas.
Exactly. And with the automatic history, you can always go back to previous versions, undo changes, or even explore different paths, It really encourages that experimentation.
It's like having a time machine for your app development.
It really is.
Okay, so speaking of different paths, let's talk about the visual side of things. Spark boasts the thumbable design system, but what does that actually mean for the user?
So basically, you don't need to be a graphic designer to make your apps look amazing. Spark provides this set of, pre-designed UI components and themes that you can easily apply to your creation.
So like buttons, menus, layouts, all that's already like taken care of. Exactly. You can customize, colors, fonts, the overall style to match your preferences or even like your brand if you have one. It's all about empowering you to create these like really polished, professional looking apps without needing a design degree.
Oh, that's fantastic. For someone like me who can, code a bit but struggles to make things look aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so let's shift gears now and talk about the behind the scenes magic that makes these apps actually work. We keep mentioning the managed runtime environment, but what does that actually entail?
So this is where Spark really shines in terms of simplifying the development process. Think back to that analogy we used. You're the architect designing your app, but you don't have to worry about the plumbing, the electrical wiring, any of those complex systems that, keep a building running.
Because Spark handles it all for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Traditionally, building an app requires setting up servers, managing databases. You deal with a whole bunch of technical headaches. But Spark's managed runtime environment takes care of all that in the background. So you can just focus on, the creative aspects of your project.
So I can just dive into building the app.
Yeah.
And Spark's handling all the technical stuff for me.
That's exactly it. No more wrestling with server configs or spending hours troubleshooting databases. Spark takes care of it all, making it super accessible and, user-friendly. But let's break down some of the key features of this runtime environment.
Yes. It all sounds so seamless. I'm curious to, understand what's happening under the hood.
Okay, well, first up, we have deployment-free hosting, which we touched on earlier. It means that your app is instantly live and accessible on any device as soon as you hit save in Spark. No separate deployment step needed.
That's incredible. It really removes all the friction and barriers that traditionally come with, getting an app out in the world.
Exactly. And then there's persistent data storage, which, as we discussed, it allows your app to remember information.
Right, like saving user preferences or remembering items in, like a shopping cart. It's essential for making apps feel, truly personalized.
Exactly. And the beauty is Spark provides all this functionality without you needing to know anything about databases or, complex data structures. It's all handled seamlessly in the background.
So it's like having this personal assistant who just takes care of all the tedious details.
It is.
Okay, so what other tricks does this magical runtime environment have up its sleeve?
Well, this is where we get to the really exciting stuff, integrated model prompting.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about adding AI superpowers to your apps?
Yes, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
So it's surprisingly simple. You define these things called prompts, which are basically just like plain English instructions.
Mm-hmm.
For the AI models, let's say you want your app to summarize news articles. You could create a prompt that says, give me a 3-sentence summary of this article, highlighting the key takeaways.
And Spark's AI models will just take that instruction and do the rest.
Exactly. They analyze the article, they extract the most important information,
Yeah.
and they generate a concise summary, all based on your prompt.
That's amazing. It feels like we're on the verge of this whole new era of app development,
Yeah.
where anyone can use the power of AI to make like truly intelligent and interactive experiences.
It really is an exciting time. Spark it's democratizing access to these, very powerful technologies, making it possible for anyone to build apps that were, I don't know, once only imaginable in science fiction.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about the possibilities. But before we get too carried away with, visions of the future, we have one more crucial aspect of Spark to cover. What about the future of Spark itself? What can we expect to see as this platform continues to evolve?
That's a great question. And luckily, the source material we're working with gave us some pretty tantalizing hints about what the future holds for Spark.
All right, deep divers, we're back and ready to jump into some of your questions about GitHub Spark. It seems our exploration of this AI-powered app creation tool has, it's sparked a lot of curiosity.
It really has. And it's fantastic to show that people are starting to really grasp the potential here. So let's get right to it, shall we?
Let's do it. So our first question comes from Sarah, who asks, how does Spark handle privacy and security? If my app is hosted on GitHub servers, is my data safe?
That's a really important question, Sarah, and one that should be, top of mind for anyone dealing with personal data. Now, while the source material doesn't go into specific security measures, it's important to remember that GitHub, they have a really strong reputation for prioritizing security, protecting user data.
Right. And we also have to consider that Spark is still in technical preview, meaning, it's under active development, it's going through rigorous testing, security being a huge part of that.
Exactly. As Spark moves closer to a public release, I think we can expect to see a lot more detail about their security protocols and, data handling practices. Transparency and user trust they're paramount in this space.
Absolutely. Our next question comes from David, who wants to know, will Spark eventually replace traditional coding? Are developers going to be out of a job?
Yes, the age-old question of, AI and its impact on jobs. While Spark definitely, simplifies app creation and empowers a wider audience to build software, it's highly unlikely that it's going to fully replace traditional coding.
Think of it this way. Spark is this incredibly powerful tool. It can automate certain tasks, lower the barrier to entry, but complex applications, the ones that, really push the boundaries, they're going to still require that expertise, that ingenuity of human developed.
Exactly. There's an art to coding. There's a deep understanding of logic and structure that, at least for now, AI can't fully replicate. Spark is more likely to augment the work of developers, freeing them from those repetitive tasks and allowing them to really focus on, the creative and challenging aspects of development.
It's about collaboration, not replacement, right? Empowering both non-coders and experienced developers to work together to build something amazing. All right, so our next question comes from Emily, who asks, what types of apps are best suited for Spark? Can I create any app I can imagine?
That's a great question, Emily. And while Spark is super versatile, it is designed for creating what we've been calling these micro apps, those small focused tools that do one thing really well.
Think of those everyday tasks you wish you could automate, or personal projects you've been dreaming of, or even those bursts of creative inspiration you want to bring to life.
Yeah.
Those are perfect for Spark.
For those larger, more complex applications with, the really intricate features and demanding performance needs, traditional coding approaches might still be a better fit.
Right, but for those everyday needs, those moments when you think, I wish there was an app for that, Spark gives you that accessible and powerful platform to make it happen.
It's all about choosing the right tool for the job. And Spark really excels at creating micro apps simple, intuitive, and even, fun.
And fun is something we definitely need more of in the tech world.
We do.
Finally, we have a question from Alex, who asks, when will Spark be publicly available? I'm really eager to try it out.
Well, Alex, the anticipation is definitely building. But since Spark is currently in technical preview, there's no, official release date just yet. But the best way to stay updated is to sign up for that waitlist on the GitHub Next website.
And based on the buzz and the pace of development, I think it's safe to say that we can expect a public release in the not too distant future.
In the meantime, I encourage everyone to explore the source material we've discussed today, delve deeper into this world of AI-powered app creation, and let your imaginations, run wild.
Who knows, maybe the next groundbreaking app will be born from a spark of inspiration, ignited by this very deep dive.
It's a really exciting time to be to be witnessing this. This democratization of app development, the power to create, is now in everyone's hands.
That's a great point. And on that note, we want to leave you with one final thought. If you could create any micro app, what would it be? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep diving deep into the world of technology.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the fascinating world of AI and how it tries to do something that all of us do, probably on a daily basis, and that is make sense of tons of different documents. And I know that sounds pretty dry, but stick with us because it gets really interesting. We're going to be looking at those large language models. You know, the things that are behind chatbots, AI writers, and how they tackle the challenge of summarization.
And it can be a real challenge. You might be thinking that AI is getting really good at this stuff, and in some ways it is. But there's this paper that came out called From Single to Multi, How LLMs Hallucinate in Multi-Document Summarization. And it basically reveals that these LLMs sometimes get things really wrong. Like in some cases, up to 75% of the content in their summaries was totally made up.
75%.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that these summaries, they're more like AI writing a fictional story than actually giving me the facts.
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way. The researchers, they actually found that these LLMs sometimes try to summarize topics that aren't even in the documents they're supposed to be looking at.
So it's like asking me to write a book report on a book that doesn't even exist.
Exactly.
But okay, so if these LLMs are making stuff up, how did the researchers even figure out what was real and what was totally fabricated?
So what they did was they focused on specific pieces of information. They called them insights. And they checked if these insights were actually mentioned in those original documents. That way they could really measure like how much of the summary was actually hallucinated.
So we've got AI that's prone to making stuff up. But what's really cool about this research is that they didn't just stop at, do LLMs hallucinate? They actually wanted to know how and where these hallucinations actually show up.
Yeah, and one of the first things they found was that what you're actually trying to summarize makes a big difference. They looked at news articles, which are usually pretty factual and straightforward.
Yeah.
And then they looked at conversations, which can be much more like all over the place.
Makes sense. Conversations are definitely way more complicated than just reading a news article.
And it turns out conversations were much harder for the LLMs. They were much more likely to hallucinate information when they were trying to summarize a conversation compared to just a news article.
And kids with all the back and forth in a conversation, maybe it just throws the AI off track.
Yeah, it's possible. They also tried something else interesting. They wanted to see if the LLMs did a better job if you told them to only summarize information that was mentioned in multiple documents, kind of like finding the common ground. They called this the subtopic plus shared setting.
So instead of trying to summarize everything, they're told to just focus on the points where multiple sources agree.
Exactly. But here's the weird part. Asking for this shared information often made the hallucinations even worse.
Wait, so you're telling me that by trying to narrow things down for the AI, by telling it just focus on the stuff that's mentioned in multiple places, it actually made things worse?
Yeah, it was a pretty surprising finding. It kind of suggests that even when we try to simplify the task for these LLMs, they can still really struggle to just stick to the facts. And one of the most startling findings of this whole paper was that these LLMs would sometimes try to create summaries for topics that weren't even mentioned in the original documents.
Hold on. So even when there was absolutely nothing to summarize, that these LLMs were like, yeah, I got this. I can make something up.
Pretty much. And one model in particular, GPT 3.5 Turbo, tried to summarize this non-existent information almost 80% of the time.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if you can trust any of these AI summaries. But were these hallucinations just randomly sprinkled throughout the summaries, or did the researchers find any kind of pattern?
That's where things get really interesting. They actually noticed a very clear pattern. The hallucinations tended to cluster towards the end of the summaries.
So like the ending of the summary was where all the made up stuff ended up.
Exactly.
That is super weird. Why would that happen?
It's not entirely clear, but the researchers think it might have something to do with how these models are trained. They're trained to predict the next word in a sequence. So maybe as they go on, they kind of lose track of the original source material and start relying more on their own internal model of the world.
So if I'm reading an AI summary, I should be extra careful about those last few sentences.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to be skeptical of the entire summary, but definitely pay attention to how things wrap up.
All of this is really fascinating, but it also raises a lot of questions, like what kinds of errors are these LLMs actually making? Are there like common patterns or categories?
That's a great question. And actually, the researchers dove into that as well.
Perfect. Well, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and explore those different types of AI hallucinations. And we're back. Now, before the break, we were talking about how AI systems sometimes make stuff up when they're summarizing multiple documents. And you were saying that the researchers actually looked closer to see if there were any patterns in the types of errors that these LLMs were making.
Yeah, they found some really interesting patterns. And it's not just random mistakes. These errors actually tell us something about how these models are processing information.
Okay, so let's get into it. What's the first type of error?
So the first type they call pedantic, and it's basically when the LLM spits out a summary that is technically true, but it's like super obvious and not helpful at all. Like, imagine you asked an LLM to summarize the history of the Dodge Demon, that muscle car,
Yeah.
And it just says, Dodge has a history of making powerful engines.
Okay, so it's not wrong, but it's also not exactly giving me any new information. It's like saying water is wet.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
the LLM is just picking up on those keywords that show up a lot, but it's not really getting the deeper meaning.
So it's more about mimicking the form of a summary than actually
Yeah.
summarizing the information.
Yeah, basically. And then the second type of error is called instruction inconsistency. This is when the LLM includes information that's not really relevant to what you asked for. Like, let's say you ask for a summary of Twitter's algorithm changes, but then it starts going on about Twitter's revenue instead.
So it's like the LLM is following instructions, but not the right ones.
Yeah, it's like it got the topic wrong. It shows how important it is to be super clear with AI about what we want.
You can't be vague or leave any room for interpretation.
Exactly. And then there's the third type, which is called context inconsistency. This is where the LLM gets some details wrong, usually by like exaggerating or simplifying the original information.
It's kind of like that game of telephone where the message changes a little bit each time you pass it on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a problem because what if you're relying on that summary to make an important decision?
Okay, so we've got pedantic, instruction inconsistency, and context inconsistency. What's the last one?
The last one is probably the most straightforward. It's called fabrication. And this is where the LLM just straight up makes up information that is not in the documents at all.
Why would it do that? Is it trying to trick us?
I don't think it's being intentionally deceptive. It's more about these LLMs being prediction machines. They're always trying to guess what comes next based on what they've learned from their training data.
So in trying to create a story that makes sense, they sometimes fill in the gaps with their own guesses, even if it means going beyond the facts.
Exactly. And that raises some interesting questions about, like, what is truth and knowledge when AI is involved?
It gets pretty philosophical.
It does. But let's come back down to earth for a minute. If these LLMs are making all these mistakes, what does that mean for the future of AI? Are we headed towards a world full of misinformation and fake news? Not necessarily. These findings are definitely concerning, but they also help us understand how to make these models more reliable.
So there's hope. We don't have to abandon AI altogether.
Not at all. There are a lot of smart people working on this problem, and they're coming up with some really promising solutions.
Okay, so how do we fix these issues? Is
Yes.
there any way to actually get these AI hallucinations under control? So how do we fix these issues? Is there any way to actually get these AI hallucinations under control?
Well, the good news is there's a lot of research going on right now to try and make these models more reliable. And one of the biggest areas of focus is the data that these models are trained on.
Right, because you were saying earlier that these LLMs, they learn from huge amounts of text. And if that data is messed up, like it's biased or inaccurate,
Right.
then the model is going to learn those same bad habits.
Exactly. It's like garbage in, garbage out. So researchers are working on ways to clean up that training data, making sure it's as diverse and accurate as possible.
So it's all about making sure the AI has good examples to learn from. But even with perfect data, there's still the issue of how these LLMs are trained. You mentioned before that they're often trained to predict the next word in a sentence, which can sometimes lead to these hallucinations.
Right. They get so focused on creating something that sounds good that they kind of forget about being accurate. So researchers are also looking at different ways to train these models.
So instead of just focusing on predicting the next word, are there other things we can teach them?
Yeah, there are a lot of different approaches being explored. One idea is to train these models on tasks that require more than just predicting the next word. Things like reasoning, analyzing information, and fact-checking.
So it's less about being a smooth talker and more about being a critical thinker.
Exactly. We want AI that can evaluate the information it's given, not just spit out grammatically correct sentences.
But how do we know if these new training methods are actually working? How do we measure whether an LLM is really understanding the information and not just making stuff up?
That's a great question. And that's where evaluation comes in. Right now, we rely a lot on metrics that compare the LLM's output to the original text, but those metrics don't always capture the nuances of language.
So we need better ways to tell if an LLM is really getting it.
Exactly. Researchers are developing new evaluation methods that go beyond just matching words. They're trying to assess things like logical coherence, factual accuracy, and the ability to draw valid conclusions.
It sounds like there's a lot of work to be done, but it also sounds like there are a lot of smart people tackling this problem from different angles. Do you think we'll eventually get to a point where we can trust these AI systems?
I'm optimistic. I think every day we're learning more about how these models work and how they sometimes fail. And that knowledge is going to help us build better training methods, create better evaluation metrics, and ultimately develop more reliable AI.
So should we be excited about the future of AI or a little bit scared?
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of both. AI has the potential to revolutionize so many different fields and solve some really complex problems. But we also need to be aware of its limitations and use it responsibly.
So don't just believe everything an AI tells you. Always double-check the information, and remember that AI is a tool, a really powerful tool, but still a tool that needs to be used carefully.
Absolutely. The future of AI depends on us using it ethically and understanding both its potential and its limitations.
That's a great point. Well, I think that wraps up our deep dive into the world of AI hallucinations. It's a complex topic, but hopefully you learned something new today, and maybe you're even a little bit more curious about the future of AI. And that's what we're all about here. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know, we get tons of papers sent our way, but this one really got us thinking.
It's a fascinating paper, really.
Yeah, it's all about LLMs. You know, those large language models.
Right.
The ones that everyone's talking about. But this paper tackles this big question. Can we ever really stop LLMs from hallucinating?
Hallucination, yeah.
I mean, can we prevent them from just making stuff up, giving us wrong information?
It's interesting because this paper, it doesn't just say, oh, let's train them better, let's just throw more data at it.
Yeah.
It actually goes deeper. It asks, are there fundamental limits here?
Right. It's not just about making them better. It's about, are there some things that they inherently can't do?
Yeah. Are there things they just cannot do?
And I love how they set up this idea of a, formal world.
Right.
Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah.
So, it's like they create this simplified universe in the paper where everything has a definite right and wrong answer. Like, we know for sure what the ground truth is.
Right. There's like this, what they call the ground truth function in this work.
Ground truth function,
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And it's from that they then define what hallucination is.
Right. So it's any time that an LLM gives an answer that doesn't match this ground truth function,
Yeah.
they say that's a hallucination.
Yeah.
And they break it down even further. They talk about total hallucination where the LLM is always wrong.
Always wrong. Okay.
Some hallucination where it gets things right sometimes.
Okay.
And then the holy grail hallucination free.
Yeah.
Where it just never hallucinates.
The perfect LLM.
A perfect LLM.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but this paper says that might not be possible.
It might not be possible.
They actually make this bold claim. Hallucination, they say, is inevitable. Not just likely, but mathematically, it has to happen with any LLM, no matter how advanced we make it.
Yeah.
Whoa, hold on. How did they figure that out?
So they use this technique called the diagonalization argument.
Diagonalization.
It's a little bit mind-bending.
Yeah, diagonalization, it sounds complicated.
But it's basically, imagine you're trying to list out every possible answer an LLM could give.
Right.
Okay.
I'm trying.
Yep. What the argument shows is that no matter how you do that, there will always be some correct answers that are missing from that list.
Some correct answers are missing, so it's incomplete no matter what.
You just can't capture everything. It's
Yeah.
like trying to fit an ocean into a swimming pool.
Wow.
But-
So does that mean that we're doomed to these weird, hallucinations forever?
It's not about a specific LLM being flawed.
Okay.
Right? It's saying that there's this fundamental limitation.
Oh, I see.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
Even the fastest car has a top speed.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
There's physical limits to what's possible.
Yeah.
And they're saying that there are similar computational limits to what LLMs can actually do.
So it's not about just training them better or adding more data. It's about there are just some things they fundamentally can't do.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So this whole inevitability thing, it really comes down to what LLMs can actually compute. There are just some problems that are too much for them to handle perfectly.
Exactly. And they give this this cool example in the paper to illustrate this. Imagine you ask an LLM to list all possible strings of a certain length using a fixed set of characters.
Okay, all possible strings of certain length. Okay.
It sounds simple, but it's deceptively difficult because the number of possibilities, the number of strings explodes as that length increases. And they say that even the biggest LLMs we have today, they fail surprisingly quickly on this.
Oh, really? Oh,
Like
sad.
they give this concrete example, listing all the strings of length 7 using only the letters A and B.
So just A and B, 7 letters long? That doesn't seem that hard.
It seems simple, but there are actually 128 possible combinations.
128. Wow.
Which is already like a long list to write out. It's like 896 characters long.
Wow. It's more than I thought it would be?
Yeah.
Okay, so it explodes quickly.
It explodes quickly.
Yeah.
And the point they make is that even these huge LLMs, even with these enormous context windows, they can't handle this task.
So it's like asking a calculator to do advanced calculus. It's just not built for that.
Yeah, exactly. You need a different tool for that.
So even these like seemingly basic tasks, they can become computationally overwhelming really fast.
Yeah, they hit a wall. Not because they're dumb, but because the problem just requires so much computational power.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they hit a wall.
Yeah.
So what do we do? I mean, are we just stuck with these hallucinations? Like, is there any hope here?
Well, the paper does explore some strategies for mitigating these hallucinations. It's all about understanding the trade-offs and using LLMs, strategically.
So there is hope. Well, that's what we're going to explore in part 2. So, okay, we've kind of established this unfortunate truth that LLMs are going to hallucinate, at least sometimes.
It seems to be baked in.
It's baked in, but we're not totally powerless, right?
Right.
I mean, the paper you sent, it talked about some pretty clever ways to at least try to reduce these hallucinations.
Yeah, there are definitely things we can do.
I'm really curious to hear more about those. What are some of those strategies?
Well, one that might seem obvious at first is just building bigger models, feeding them more data.
Yeah, like the merrier kind of approach.
Exactly, like if you want to see fainter stars, you build a bigger telescope.
Right.
So the thinking is, if we make these LLMs more powerful, maybe they'll be able to handle those really complex problems without hallucinating as much.
That makes sense. But I remember the paper saying there are some limits to that approach. Like, it's not a cure-all.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It comes back to that core issue of what actually computationally possible.
Yeah.
Like if a problem just requires a level of computation that the LLM can't reach, then no amount of data or layers is going to magically solve that.
Okay, so it might help up to a point, but there's a ceiling.
Yeah, there's a ceiling, exactly.
Like, it's kind of like adding more lanes to a highway.
Oh, okay.
It'll help with traffic flow, but if everybody's still trying to squeeze through the same tiny toll booth at rush hour,
Right.
you're still going to have a bottleneck.
You're still going to have a bottleneck. That's a great analogy.
So it's not always about just brute force.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Okay, working smarter. So if just going bigger isn't always the answer, what about giving our LLMs like a little bit more guidance?
That's a really interesting idea, and that's where prompt engineering comes in, right?
Prompt engineering. Yeah.
Giving the LLM more context, clearer instructions, maybe even some examples of how to reason through the problem.
Yeah. This is something that I bet a lot of our listeners are already, playing around with.
Absolutely. And it can be incredibly powerful because by providing more context, you're essentially giving the LLM more clues about the ground truth of the problem.
So you're helping it navigate that huge space of possible answers.
Exactly. You're narrowing down the possibilities.
Okay, that makes sense.
And there's, within prompt engineering, there's this idea of chain of thought prompting.
Chain of thought prompting, yeah. I was really curious about that. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so it's basically like you walk the LLM through the reasoning steps.
Oh, okay.
Almost like you're showing it how to think.
So you're giving it a little like a roadmap.
Exactly, like a roadmap. And it can be super effective.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that it's not, a magic bullet. It works best when the problem itself is fairly straightforward and you can break it down into like clear steps.
Okay, so it has its limitations.
Yeah, it has its limitations. For really complex or nuanced tasks, it might not be enough.
Gotcha. So it's another tool in the toolkit, but we still need to choose the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And the paper also touched on a few other techniques just to give a sense of, how much research is happening in this area.
Oh, yeah.
For example, some people are experimenting with using ensembles of LLMs.
Ensembles, like a musical group.
Well, kind of. It's like you combine the output from several different LLMs, to get a more accurate result.
Oh, so it's like getting a second opinion from a doctor.
Exactly. More perspectives can lead to better decisions.
Makes sense.
And then there's this idea of building guardrails into the systems, like, rules that try to prevent the LLM from going off the rails, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. Keep it on track.
Keep it on track. And then there's a lot of work on, incorporating external knowledge sources like databases or knowledge graphs. So you give the LLM a much wider pool of information to draw from.
Give it access to like a whole library instead of just one textbook.
Yeah, exactly. So, even though we have these limitations, there's clearly a lot of really exciting work being done to try to make these LLMs more reliable.
That's really encouraging to hear. But I gotta say, knowing that this hallucination thing is kind of a built-in feature, it makes me think, how should we, as users, how should we be thinking about using these tools?
Right.
It feels like we almost need like a whole new kind of literacy,
Yeah.
A way to understand both the amazing power and the potential pitfalls.
I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's all about becoming informed and discerning users.
Informed and discerning. Okay.
We need to be able to critically evaluate what the LLM is telling us.
Yeah.
Understand when we can trust its output and when we need to be a little more cautious. And we also need to remember that these models are products of human design,
Right.
which means they can reflect our own biases and limitations.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What are the big takeaways from all this?
Well, I think, first of all, it's crucial to remember that these LLMs, they're incredibly powerful tools.
Yeah.
They're already changing the way we work, learn, and create.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're not magic.
Right.
And they're not a replacement for human intelligence. We need to approach them with, a healthy dose of skepticism. And always keep in mind those inherent limitations.
So be enthusiastic, but be cautious.
Yeah.
They're amazing assistants, but maybe not quite the all-knowing oracles we sometimes imagine them to be.
Well said. And that leads us perfectly into the final part of our deep dive.
Ooh, the final part.
We've talked about the problems and some potential solutions. But what does all this mean for the future of LLMs? What are the broader implications? Stay tuned, because we're about to explore those very questions.
Okay, deep divers, we're back. And, we've been on this journey, this deep dive into LLMs. We've seen the good, the bad, the potential. But now it's time to really think big picture. Where do we go from here? What does all of this mean for the future?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
I think this paper really drives home the point that LLMs, for all their power, are still machines. They operate within the limits of what we can compute, and those limits, well, they're very real.
Yeah. It's like realizing, even the most advanced spaceship, it can't travel faster than the speed of light. There are just like fundamental laws of the universe we have to deal with.
Exactly. There are these boundaries we can't cross. And it makes you realize that, we can get so caught up in the hype thinking LLMs are like on the verge of being all-knowing. But this research, it kind of reminds us they're not. We've got a long way to go.
A long way to go. And it really highlights the importance of, of us, of human intelligence.
Yeah.
Like LLMs can help us, they can augment our abilities, but they can't really replicate the full spectrum of human thought.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to things like common sense reasoning, ethical judgment, emotional intelligence. These are areas where humans still have a clear advantage.
So knowing all of this, how should we be thinking about LLMs going forward? How should we be using them? It feels like we need like a whole new way of thinking about this.
A whole new literacy.
Yeah. A literacy that allows us to understand the power, but also the pitfalls.
I think you're spot on. We need to become really informed users. Like, we have to be able to look at what the LLM is telling us with a critical eye to know, okay, when can I trust this output? And when do I need to be a little bit more cautious?
Yeah, be a little more skeptical.
A little more skeptical. And remember that, these models, they're designed by humans, trained on data, created by humans. So they can reflect our own biases, our own limitations.
So it's a bit like working with a brilliant but maybe sometimes unreliable colleague. You gotta appreciate their strengths.
Right.
But also be aware of their weaknesses and maybe double check their work when it really, really matters.
Exactly. And this paper, it really underscores the need for safeguards, what they call guardrails and fences.
Guardrails and fences, okay.
Yeah. we need to be thinking really carefully about how we design and deploy these systems so they don't cause harm. And so we're using them responsibly for tasks where accuracy is super important.
That makes a lot of sense. It's exciting to think about all the possibilities, but we also need to, proceed with caution. LLMs can be powerful allies, but we have to make sure that, that we're the ones steering the ship.
Yeah, we're the captains. And, it's not all about, preventing negative outcomes. There's a lot of potential for LLMs to actually enhance human creativity.
Oh, that's interesting.
The paper even mentions that sometimes, those hallucinations, those unexpected outputs can actually lead to really fascinating and inspiring results, especially in fields like art and design.
It's like not all errors are bad errors.
Exactly.
Sometimes those unexpected detours, those lead to the most amazing discoveries.
Exactly. And LLMs, they could be incredible partners in the creative process, helping us to push the boundaries of what's possible.
I love that. Partners in the creative process. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say are some of the big takeaways here?
It's been a fascinating exploration, that's for sure. We've talked about these limits of computation, the importance of human oversight, the potential for challenges and opportunities as these LLMs, become more integrated into our lives.
Yeah, they're already everywhere.
They are, and it feels like we're just, scratching the surface. There's so much more to learn and to explore.
So much more to learn, and it's changing so fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so exciting. We're learning more about the nature of intelligence, both human and artificial, with every new discovery.
Well, that's a perfect place to leave it. But dear listener, before you go, we want to leave you with a question. Knowing what you now know about LLMs, their limitations, how does it change the way you think about using these tools? What are your limits for trusting their output? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so share them with us. Until next time, happy deep diving.
Hello, Anne. Welcome to my channel. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me. Let me first introduce Anne is my classmate. We studied together in University of Milano. And today I have the pleasure to invite her to talk with us in my channel. I wish this is the first time, and in the future, whenever you feel comfortable, you can always come back so we can talk about data science, talk about different topics of the AI. So, so first of all, can you tell us about your background and how you get into the data science and machine learning?
So my name is Anne. I'm studying with Stephen, almost finished. I spent first year in in Milan, and then I moved to Zurich for a year exchange, and I was doing my master thesis here as well. And now currently I'm based in Zurich. I got into this program, was kind of very spontaneous. I was looking for a bachelor class for my sister, and I just found an announcement of the program, and I found it really interesting, and I just registered. I didn't even know that it was a hype. And then I told to a lot of friends of me that, I'm gonna study master in data science, and then a lot of friends of me actually told me that, oh wow, that's the most attractive job in the market right now. A lot of articles wrote about this topic, but actually I just feel like I'm comfortable with math because I'm actually from a gifted high school where I spend a half of the day every day studying math for Olympiad competition. So I was thinking, well, it's great that I can combine the knowledge in other disciplines in economics to data science and learn more about programming.
Yeah, wow, that's very interesting. So just to be honest, when I chose this study path, I did not think too much. Now it's data science and the combination with the machine learning and AI, everything is is a hot in the road, right? Yeah. So in your opinion, what are the key challenges you faced to apply the machine learning to real world problem?
I spent 6 months doing internship in Zurich for a software company, for a product company. So we basically produce a product for people who want to become a data scientist without programming skill. So you just need to know how to read model, you can use a platform to analyze the data. It's called local. It's a type of startup. So I was tell you about my experience in the company. I think the biggest challenge when I apply machine learning to the real world problem is probably that you need to spend a lot of time in data engineering. And for my specific cases where I had to build case study for the user, I think the most difficult thing for me is that I need to spend a lot of time think about how I design the research, how to come up with. It's like you basically draw a painting by your own, or you need to make a movie by your own. I need to think about the story that I'm gonna tell, the problem that I'm gonna solve, and where I can find the data. And then in that stage, I think the data engineering sometimes take a lot of time. So I think probably if it's a general question for everyone, I would say that data engineering is kind of time consuming. But for my specific case study, I think to have a big picture in your mind, what you're gonna do, what problem you solve, is really challenging, because you need to be creative to come up with some idea that is worth to spend months on the project.
Yeah, that's very insightful. Yeah, so it's like sometimes when I do some projects, like some just for hobby, right? For example, to predict some numerical variable, to predict something, you have millions of ways to do it. But how do you prepare the features, right? You need to prepare your data very well. And sometimes because the feature space is like infinite space that you can explore. So you need to be careful to choose which one is important, which one is less important, and so on. So yeah, I think I also feel that...
I think it's quite a great example, because I remember back then when I just exposed to data science field, basically what I did is like learn by heart or copy and paste. So basically I just go to the internet, Medium. Some people already design their research. And what I do is just copy and paste, or at least choose the method that they use, or analyze the same thing that they actually figure out already on in the internet. But then in the real life, maybe you don't have the answer, or even you have a higher standard, like myself now. Even I know, for example, this data set, normally people will solve this like this, but I want to create something original of my own. Then it's quite tricky, because you have a lot of model, you have a lot of method. You need to choose it. It's like you have a canvas and you need to draw your painting, choose the color. It's very show really your taste. So that's a really great example. I see. That's it. I think it's like it could be maybe the path for people who really want to do data science. Like initially, you can just start with some. You don't need to have your own idea. You just copy and paste maybe, or you just. I mean, it's called reference. You reference the project of someone else and just to read. And at some point, if the knowledge you accumulate in your mind enough, and together with the data intuition that you have, I think you can tell your own story by applying your own things.
Yeah, so basically we are learning by doing, right? One side we are learning continuously, and then when we apply to the real world, we need to think more. So basically, I think you already read my mind. So my following question about how to select the machine learning model and how important is feature engineering. I think we can skip these two questions. So so another question is that what are the common misconceptions about machine learning that you've encountered with in the industry? So I'm asking this because if we already studied machine learning and AI, right? We know more or less the distinctions between these concepts. But for the audience, for the broader audience, most of the people now think AI is a hot topic. But when we dive into it, more of it is about large language model, multimodality model, and so on. So do you think now in the market there are some misconceptions where the market do not get it?
I think something that I figured out when I was working in the industry after spend a while in academia, working in the lab in ETH, then I realized the biggest thing that kind of shocked me is that it's about AI, so I assume that it's a part of machine learning, right? Is that it's the fact that most of companies nowadays do not host any AI model themselves. So basically, most of company that application or chatbot that you found on the internet right now is kind of like they play a role as a mediators. So when you send a request or the proper term is prompt, when you send a prompt questions, the company will send that request to a third party. That could be a OpenAI or Hugging Face. That is two big player in that kind of third party thing now. Then via API, and then those kind of company will send the result from their trained model, which is AI model, and the mediators will show to you the answer or probably poll processes in some way that is make it more accessible, more understandable for the user. So it's probably that you see everywhere. They claim that, oh, we have AI, we integrate it with AI. They promote a lot about GenAI stuff. They have a chatbot, that's smart stuff. But basically, they don't host the AI model. And they just play a role as a mediators agency to send your request to another one and get the request, get an answer, and show it to you in a more beautiful way.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's very detailed, how can I say, demystify the structure of the AI we are talking about now. Because most of the interaction, we are interacting with the backend very far from the user, right? Like we use ChatGPT, or the server and how this model is inferencing and give us an answer is not hosted locally. I already see some of the comments like in LinkedIn. There are some practitioners in the AI industry. They suggest that either the individual and also the companies to host their local model. But there are many challenges, I think, because you need to have the experts to know your data, know your business, know your use case, and know how to help you to fine tune the model to your use case, right? So it's not so easy. So for some small business, maybe they just let's delegate this job to a third party to do the job. But like some of the big company like JP Morgan, like the investment bank, they already have their internal models developed. I think I heard of Bloomberg, because they have a lot of trading data.
I heard a friend work for Bloomberg as a data scientist in Zook. But I never really discussed with him about if he really trained a model. That's interesting, but I believe so because of the privacy concern, right? I think if they put a priority on what. If the priority is on the privacy issue or their business private secret, then I think hosting a local AI model is really crucial. Otherwise, if your business are just a small one and it's not your core product, you don't have that much the information that you don't want to be leaked. Then you just play the role like agency. You just send your request to another company and get it.
Especially we are in EU, right? Where in EU is like the most strictly regulated place for AI. Like we have GDPR. When you are touching GDPR, you cannot how you use the data, how you gather the data, how you train your model. Everything is limited. So I'm really curious about how they do it in France, right? Like in the whole Europe now we know Mistral. We know Mistral model, nothing else. Like in United States we have so many models, and also some like in Singapore, in China we have many models. So I totally agree with you. Privacy is a very important issue, and when we talk about the application in different company is a totally different issue. Like we use as a user using ChatGPT and so on. Yeah. So can you walk us through a recent project where machine learning make a significant impact? Maybe some project you know or you are currently doing.
Well, I actually did a lot of project in natural language processing, but later people probably understand it as large language model. So, but it's like maybe 1 year ago when I basically used pre-trained model, language model, to identify the Italian dialect. So given a corpus, a text, paragraph, me and my team actually identify where that person come from, like Veneto or Sicilia or Rome or something. And that was kind of a very interesting project. Or recently, actually the last 6 months, I spent time on building case study for sport data. So one of interesting article actually I write, and also it's like a project I did using very classical machine learning models with tree predictors and logistic regression, which is very classical that maybe everyone who studied machine learning should know. To answer for the question, if body size matter in triathlon. So, triathlon is a very extreme sport. But then the result turned out that actually the height and the weight of a athlete is does not affect the result at all. So, which is, I think, an interesting project.
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear that you are applying different machine learning models and doing a lot of projects. I think practice can make us more confident to confront the future challenges, right?
Yeah.
So another question, how do you stay up to date with the rapid developments? One day I was checking either LinkedIn or X, the Twitter. I see there are so many papers about, especially about transformers, like for natural language processing. It's like every day we have tens of thousands of papers. You cannot consume it timely. What is your suggestion or your idea of keeping up with such rapid development?
I think my case kind of an outlier. So maybe my advice wouldn't useful for the other, wouldn't be useful for the others. But so I'm a little bit antisocial. I used to use not to use LinkedIn, but recently because of my job I had to use it. I didn't use X either, Twitter. But then recently I use LinkedIn, so I saw a lot of posts about LLM. Some of them are interesting, some of them maybe also less interesting. But the thing is, you have a very limited resources of attention, and you don't know which one worth the time and worth your attention. So I actually choose to unfollow a lot of people and keep only the close circle of me that I know in the lab of ETH or some researcher in ETH that I know already that reliable in my circle and read their recommendation or they like. Back then when I was doing my master thesis in ETH, we had a weekly meeting, and during the week or couple of times we had a reading session. We or the researcher or professor would introduce a new newspaper or news or articles that they found interesting, and I kept myself updated by reading those things. Or I think for me actually something more. I also listen to podcasts, but it's helped me in the sense that developing the conceptual idea more than really chasing some specific technology. I think when it's a hype, there are a lot of unuseful information. What you need to know probably is follow some reliable researcher that you see the background with their probably from good institution or from good research group, and then you probably follow their blog or probably LinkedIn channel or Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, that's really good advice, really. It's like the paper said, attention is all we need, right? So we need to actually distribute our attention to the point. Yeah. If we just read all the posts and all the discussions every day, it's just too much. So
Exactly.
yeah, we need to distill, right? There is a technique called distillation of the large language model. We also need to distill our
I know
content.
this one.
Yeah, otherwise we cannot catch up.
Back then
with
for
it.
my research, I also use that model. It's called DistillBird.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually before ChatGPT was published, actually people I think in CS in general or AI, the so-called they usually mention about BERT, and then there's another model was released which is lighter than BERT. It's called DistillBird, which is distillation of BERT.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know that model. Maybe I already used it in one of my video. Yeah, because I was trying to just do some simple inferencing to get an answer from such model. And also another project is about it's like to identify if two sentences mean the same thing. So we can fine tune the transformer, the previous transformer models, like the model you mentioned, and to actually do the classification task. I also read some of the comments from the Hugging Face. Some of the experts, they say, some of the language tasks we do not necessarily need 10 billion, 100 billion huge model. We can just use BERT. Just use the basic transformer. Yeah, so it's quite interesting because also like you said, when there is a lot of hype, it's like a lot of bubble, a lot of information. But what you really need and what you really need to work on is really important, right? We need to know what we want and how we can approach that.
I think it's also it's like a philosophy of life that I follow, not only for AI, but also like I mentioned before my previous project, I use tree predictors or logistic regression. It's nowadays there are a lot of library. You can use a lot of powerful thing. It's like you can use a lot of big model. It's everywhere, pre-trained everywhere, model everywhere. You can just download it for free. But the thing is, what is the need? You need to use. If you don't need, if you want to. You just want to learn, then I think using something simple is good. Or in machine learning, classical way, the same. If you want to interpret, you want to know what features play the most important role in the predicted model or something, then the smaller model is the better actually, because there's less parameters.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. So there are so many research topic or use case there, right? We do not necessarily need to talk to a model. We can finish some of the task with our local compute. Because what I did, I tried to host some of the model locally. It's very painful because they are just too huge. But when we talk about smaller models, like just hundreds of millions of parameters, we can run in our local CPU, and it's not so slow. Yeah, so yeah, it's I totally agree with you. Yeah, we need to understand the tool, understand the issue, and how we can integrate them together. So my next question is that. So about the recent AI development, especially about the large language model, so it's based on the transformer, right? Transformer is like a base for all the models. Do you foresee there will be some change in the structure? So maybe some new framework will be better to help us to reach to AGI, let's say. Because like some of the professors already said that maybe large language model is not the road to AGI, or the current framework is not road to AGI. Maybe the next step forward, maybe we need some new structure. What do you think about this?
Actually, I used to ask the professor about these questions. He from CMU. He told me probably the transformer is not efficiently in cost yet. Probably in the future there would be some other model that more like optimized in computings and costs and things like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because it's moving very fast, right? Now NVIDIA, both the stock price and also the price for the product is so inflated.
Yeah.
So I'm also seeing some of the innovation both in the in the model side, like a different model configuration to increase the efficiency of the model.